We'll call the meeting to order. And the first thing on the agenda is the presentation of colors. So if you would stand with me and allow our ROTC to present colors. Oh, they're not here yet? Allow me to lead the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Good thing I showed up, huh? Next item on the agenda is, as most of you are aware in the room, this is American Education Week. And the board is approving a resolution tonight, or actually we're not approving it. I'm just, as the president, I guess I've signed it, and we are resolving. So if you would allow me to read this resolution, and then immediately following that, we'll go into presentations. Whereas public schools are the backbone of our democracy, providing young people with the tools they need to maintain our nation's precious values of freedom, civility, and equality. And whereas by equipping young Americans with both practical skills and broader intellectual abilities, schools give them hope for and access to a productive future. And whereas education employees, be they custodians or teachers, bus drivers or librarians, work tirelessly to serve our children and communities with care and professionalism. And whereas schools are community linchpins, bringing together adults and children, educators and volunteers, business leaders and elected officials in a common enterprise. Now, therefore, I, Ernie Currier, serving as president of the Enid Board of Education, do hereby proclaim the week of November 16 through 20 as American Education Week, signed this 16th day of November 2015. And I do just want to go on record. I see so many folks in the audience tonight that are involved in education, and I can't express to you just how much it means to see the quality of educators that we have in Enid, from the support staff to the administration and everyone in between. And so thank you all so much for what you do. Board, could we give them a hand? Okay, Amber, it's all yours now.
Yes, as you know, board and community, there are a number of ways that we celebrate American Education Week. Through our partnership with the Enid Education Association, we have a poster contest, we have special days throughout the week, we recognize staff, and perhaps one of the most important and loved traditions is we have at this board meeting a representative from every school to come tell us what they love about learning and what they love about their school. And so I've heard the board say a number of times that this is one of their favorite meetings of the year, if not their very favorite. So at this time, I'm going to ask William from Adams to start us off this evening.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is William Beddoes. I'm 11 years old. I attend Adams Elementary School. I've been there for 6 years. The teachers are the main reason why I love Adams. The teachers make learning fun. They always have an ear when you need to talk. The teachers treat everybody like they're important and everybody matters. I love Adams. Thank you.
Short. Hello, my name is Stephen Maxwell, and today I will represent the Coolidge Colts. Here at Coolidge, we have Chromebooks donated by a rich man. At Coolidge, we also have Corral. Corral is an hour of intervention to help students build on their skills. Now, I have to go. Thank you, Mrs. Cruz, for this wonderful opportunity to talk about our school. Have a great night.
Good evening. My name is Eric Lewis, and I am from Eisenhower Elementary. I am proud to be an Eisenhower Eagle. Our teachers are very kind and help us learn many different things. We work to build our skills in math, reading, science, social studies, and vocabulary. We understand that mistakes help us learn, and all things at first are difficult. Every student works to support the 8 expectations, which include to help one another whenever possible and encourage each other to do our best. These are some of the many reasons why I'm proud to be an Eisenhower Eagle. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Desiree Sutton, and I am here to represent Garfield Elementary School. I like Garfield Elementary because all the teachers are nice, fun, and they care for all their students. I like that everyone works as a team. Thank you.
My name is Colby DePriest. I am a third grader at Glenwood Elementary. I really enjoy going to Glenwood because my teachers are nice and helpful. Glenwood also started a Lego club where I get to use my imagination.
Hi, my name is Cassidy. I am a fifth grader at Hayes Elementary, and I'm here to tell you about Hayes. Hayes is great. We always have great teachers by our side every day. Hayes has new opportunities every day. We have the best principal ever, Miss Murphy. She is one of the nicest people I've ever met. She is funny, loyal, kind, and pretty. Hayes is special because we are unique, and we accept that. Hayes makes sure we have everything to start school. Hayes has music and PE every day, and that makes us lucky. Our teachers encourage us. They bring us up, not down. Our teachers work hard so we have the perfect education. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sophie. I'm in third grade at Hoover Elementary. The past 2 years have been the best 2 years of my life. My principal, Miss Heiser, has so much school spirit, and she is so nice. The morning assemblies are great, and the students have so much energy, and they make you feel welcome. And no matter what, you always know that you have someone to lean on. All the teachers are so nice and sweet. They never, ever try to make you mad, and if they get onto you, they get onto you in a nice way. And you will never have to go through anything alone. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Zoe, and I'm a fifth grader who goes to McKinley Elementary.
What's your favorite thing about McKinley, Zoe?
All the teachers.
All the teachers, they're great teachers at McKinley. Now, what's your favorite subject?
Math.
And maybe your favorite principal's coming up right behind you?
Sure. Okay. Right there. Your name and our school.
My,
You want me to say that part?
yeah.
Okay, this is Adam Tripp, and we are from Monroe. Remember what you're going to say?
I love Monroe because Monroe loves me for who I am.
Very good.
My name is Kylie Whitehead. I am 10 years old and I'm from Prairie View Elementary. I'm proud to be at Buffalo, and our teachers are very educated and caring, as well as our students. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Noah Packard. I go to Taft Elementary School, and I'm proud to go to Taft Elementary School because all of our teachers are very helpful and funny, and they laugh often, and they help you with whatever you need help on. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Logan Haynes. I'm 14. I go to Emerson Middle School, and I've been at Emerson for all 3 years of junior high, and I've loved it. And I just love the teachers at Emerson and how they help us get to high school. And we have our leadership class that teaches us to be leaders, and we have Irish Council that helps with everything that we need. And that's the main reason I love Emerson. And some statistics show that leaders at the high school mostly come from Emerson. So I love that, and I just love all our assemblies and what Emerson is doing. Thank you.
You got more statistics for us? Good evening. My name is Michaela Williams, and I am happy to be here to represent Longfellow Middle School. I'm in the 8th grade, and I participate in many activities at my school. I am the secretary for the Student Council. I'm on the academic team, a unified partner for Special Olympics, and I play the clarinet for band. Last weekend, I auditioned to be in the Red Carpet Honor Band, and I made it. I also play soccer for the Longfellow soccer team, and I'm on the track team. And I am in the National Junior Honor Society and a member of the LGE Longfellow Silver Project. Every month at Longfellow, we have pride assemblies that are hosted by the Student Council, and they're always fun to go to because we have games, grade level competitions, games, and and we do the grade level competition games to see who wins our Mustang Pride trophies. We also celebrate Heritage and Awareness Month. In September was Hispanic Heritage Month, as November is Native American Heritage Month. And we do presentations and videos on those. And the last week of October was Red Ribbon Week, and we had a whole week of dress-up days to support the Scare Away Drugs theme this year. And last Wednesday for the Veterans Day program, the pre-AP History 8th grade put on the program, and it was a great success. Also, this Friday, we have our first soccer game, and we will be going to Waller after lunch and play a co-ed game against Waller. And then also, Student Council will be kicking off Penny Wars the first week of December. This will raise funds for Stamp Out Starvation, formerly known as Kids Against Hunger. And Longfellow students will, for the 4th year, Stamp Out Starvation, 4th year in a row, package meals to feed starving people all over the world. And it is honestly really fun to package meals for students. We do it for 3 days, and each grade gets to do it. And I've done it all 3 years I've been at Longfellow, and it's awesome. We have many clubs at Longfellow that people can be in, like robotics, honor choir, yearbook, media club, and the LMS news. And we also have a new computer club that just started after school. And Longfellow is proud to announce that our Teacher of the Year is our band director, Mr. Gomez. So we recently met with LG&E, the leadership grader Enid, and are happy to report that this group chose all 3 middle school playgrounds for their service project this year. Our theme is the Silver Project, recognizing the 25th year of the group. We discussed the things we wanted to improve in our playground and ways to fundraise to make renovation possible. And I'd like to show you a short video about our partnership.
Good evening, Board. Dr. Floyd asked me to speak about the TEDx conference from this weekend. Waller's been abuzz the last month or so preparing for that conference. And as far as we know, we are the first organization in Oklahoma to host a TEDx youth conference. It's a technology-based conference. We had 10 student speakers, Waller students, and 3 adult speakers on Saturday. Just sheer ideas worth talking about. And so that will be available online for the world to see very soon. And we're excited that it was a great success Saturday, and lots of parents and teachers have asked, are we going to do it again? And it's certainly in the future hopeful that we can do that. But you had to apply for the approval to use this logo and go through and do the TEDx conference. And so we did get that approval and hosted that on Saturday. And we wanted to share our event t-shirts with you guys tonight. So it was a great time, and look forward to sharing that link with you so you guys can see what our students have been doing.
Hi, my name is Madison Jacobs, and I'm from Waller Middle School in the 8th grade. At Waller, we've been given many opportunities that other schools may not have. I'm the editor for the morning announcements and media production, and we have many iMacs and iPads that we use to film videos that we show every morning on Monday assemblies and our YouTube channel. Waller Middle School has given me great opportunities to learn about technology. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Hudson. I'm 5 years old. I go to pre-K to school at Commons. What I like about school is that I like my teacher, I like my school. I like to play with my friends. I like to do activities with my grandmas and grandpas. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Camille Archer, and I'm a senior at Enid High School. And I'd have to say my favorite part of Enid High has to be its AP classes. I'm currently in 5, so I just feel like they make me more ready for college, and I feel more prepared for the level of work I'm going to get at a university, which I feel is going to really help me in the long run. And also the classes are more engaging, and I feel like I'm getting a deeper understanding of the subject than just regular classes, which I took freshman year. And they pushed me out of my boundaries, and they forced me to better myself as a student and better my studying habits, which can be difficult at times, but I feel really privileged that Enid High offers so many AP classes, because I feel like they've really broadened my education these past 4 years, and I don't know where I'd be without them, so thank you.
Good evening. My name is Cody Kirby, and I would like to explain why Lincoln Academy is important to me. I should have graduated last year, but due to circumstances in my life, I did not graduate. I started working at Potter Oil Company full-time. There I met Mr. Mayberry, and he told me to speak with Mr. Hillman at Lincoln. Mr. Hillman explained to me how Lincoln worked and that I could continue with Potter Oil, attend night school, and earn my high school diploma. I feel that the education that I am receiving from Lincoln is awesome, and the teachers are outstanding. I will now be able to graduate in December and have the opportunity to attend Autry to training as a mechanic. I'm so appreciative for Lincoln's programs where students can work full-time, attend school, and receive their education. Thanks to Lincoln and Enid Public Schools, I can now finish this chapter of my life and begin a new one.
Good evening. My name is Kaylee Jones. I'm 19 years old, and I'm a proud senior at Lincoln Academy. I grew up in Florida, and I attended public school until the age of 10 in 2007. I was in 5th grade when I had to drop out of public school and attend online at home so I could take care of my sisters. I attended online school for 8 years. When I turned 14, my family moved me here to Enid, Oklahoma. I continued online classes through Oklahoma Virtual High. I was with this school for about 4 out of the 8 years. I have to say that online school was one of the worst experiences in my young life. I was basically teaching myself. In February of this year, my parents moved back to Florida. I moved out of their house and I stayed behind. The reasons I chose to stay behind is because instead of moving back home were because I had a good job and I did not want to restart my senior year. A month before school went back, I came across Lincoln Academy. I talked to them and told them my story and where I was in my education. I chose to go on board with Lincoln. Where I stand today, I'm so glad I made that decision. Lincoln is a great school. I don't know if I could ask for a better school. They are making it possible for me to finish my education and carry out my dream of walking across the stage in my cap and gown and get my diploma while I can still work a full-time job and support myself out on my own. My teachers are great. My teachers are Mr. Kirtley, Miss Allen, Mr. Chesser, and Miss Cindy. They will go out of their way to help me if I'm stuck on something or just can't grasp something. I want to give a big shout out to Miss Cindy and Mr. Holman back there here at Lincoln Academy. These two are truly amazing people. They have made me feel welcome. I sometimes have discomfort in new places and around people I don't know, but they have made me feel comfortable going to a public school for the first time in 8 years. I can honestly say I see Miss Cindy as a close family member or friend of mine. I feel as I can talk to her about anything. When I am having a bad day or going through something, I can talk to her. I want to thank everyone at Lincoln Academy for giving me an opportunity to finish my senior year strong and give me the experience of public school again. Lincoln Academy is a great school, and I feel honored to be a student. I've never felt more welcome. I will miss everyone when I graduate.
We've heard from all of our students for American Education Week. If you would, please give these amazing students another round of applause. Thank you all for being here and for telling us about your wonderful schools. We know you have great teachers, great principals, that you have parents who help you with your schoolwork, but it really means a lot to hear it straight from you, and we're so glad you were here to share with us. Another very exciting part of American Education Week is our poster contest, which we co-host with the Enid Education Association. And at this time, I would like to ask Mrs. Miles to come up to the podium and to introduce our poster contest winners.
Thank you, board, parents, and students, and educators for allowing me to be here. On behalf of EEA, in American Education Week, we had a variety of posters this year entered into our contest. It was a very hard decision. It's always fun seeing the children's view of what is great about their school, and there were a lot of posters to choose from and made our decision very difficult. But our first winner tonight, I would like to congratulate, is Lucas DeShazo from Adams Elementary. He was our pre-K through second grade winner. And he is receiving a certificate and $30 from EEA.
Congratulations. I have another certificate, but I don't have a check. I'm sorry.
And our second winner was Kenzie Stotts from Prairie View Elementary, and our 4th through 6th grade winner. Thank you. And as you'll see, their posters are being displayed on the screen as we're introducing them. And our last winner this evening is Emily DeCastro from Emerson Middle School. She's the 6th through 8th grade winner.
You guys all three to stand right here. I'm going to get your picture very quickly. I love your posters. Thank you guys for your great work. Thank you very much. United Way next. Okay. If it's okay. United Way, okay. As most everyone in the room knows, and hopefully all of Enid knows, the school system is very proud to be chairing the United Way campaign this school year. And the theme is Learning to Give, Living United. And we are so proud of our students and our employees for the great work they've done raising money for this organization, which helps our local residents with needs and allows us to help one another. I think I'll turn it over to Dr. Floyd to share some of the good news about the success we've had.
All right, thank you, Amber, and I want to echo what Amber said. Great big thank you to all of the employees that participated in the United Way campaign, and also the students that helped out along the way, and I know it takes a lot of work on the parents' end of that as well. But last year, our employee base in EPS raised about $12,000 for the United Way campaign. This year, we more than doubled that, and that is a phenomenal accomplishment. And as I said, not only the employees, but the students and the parents as well. And so we want to say a great big thank you to all of those folks, and also thanks on behalf of all of the folks who benefit from that money, because all that money stays here locally to help folks that are in need in our community. So on behalf of those folks that you may never see or hear from, I want to say thank you on behalf of them. But also, as the chair of the United Way campaign here locally, I want to say thank you from the chair and all the folks that help with United Way as well. So thank you. And we had kind of a friendly competition within the school district, and I'll let Amber. Do you have that information, or do you want me to?
I will let you announce it.
Okay.
If you have it there, but I can.
All right. Let me find it here. Just 1 second. Okay, we actually have 3 plaques to present, and I believe they're down there on that table, Ernie. And we have 3 plaques. So the only fair way to do this is to kind of divide it up by small school competition, employee base, and large school employee base. And so we did it in 3 different categories this year. And the first campus winner goes to the small campus category, and the winner of that is Eisenhower. So come on down. All right, come on down, get your picture. And we have a United Way plaque to present that they can keep at their campus to brag about for an entire year. Congratulations. And then in the big school category, the winner this year for the United Way campus competition goes to Garfield Elementary. And then last but not least, we have a third category, kind of an other category. And the winner of that category this year goes to the Support Services Center right next door. Is Mr. McCune here or anybody from the SSC?
I believe Mrs. Elliott.
All right, Miss Elliott, come on down. And again, we want to say a great big thank you to everybody that participated in our local EPS campaign, raising a total of $26,400. Let's give everybody a hand, please. Great job. Thank you very much. Cross country.
Yes, we have one more recognition this evening. It's a very important one. We have boys and girls cross country. They have had an outstanding year, not only an incredible showing at their conference, but a number of individual awards to share with you as well. So at this time, I would like to invite Coach Bloom, who is going to share with us about their season, about their many accomplishments.
Okay, I'll start off by, I'll introduce my assistant first. This is Savannah Meeks, or Savannah Ward, she just got married. We'll be calling up the girls first, Brianna Brown. Misha Clater. Brianna.
What? Yeah, after you get your certificate, come on over there and we'll get a group.
Morgan Klein. Kenley Davis. Alex Hernandez. Angel Nash. And Grace Voth. Now I'll call it the boys. Landon Finley. Gavin Lack. Austin Loza. Samuel Perez. Philip Starr. Jeff Taylor. And Garrett Wallace is not able to be here tonight, but we'd like to recognize him also. As far as what these two groups did this year, the boys, the conference meet, they were first place. As far as all conference runners, Gavin, Landon, well, Gavin was second, Landon Finley was fifth, Samuel Perez was eighth, and Jake Taylor was 15th at the conference meet. They all medaled. The girls were runner-up. Kinley Davis was first place. Brianna Brown was third. Misha Clater was 11th. Grace Voth was 14th, and Alex Hernandez was 15th. So at the conference meet, they did outstanding because the Big Ten Conference is a tough conference. Then we went to regionals. At regionals, Brianna Brown was 12th, and Kinley Davis was 13th. It was the first time since 2006, when we went to regionals, that the boys made it and qualified to move on to state. It had been since 2003 that both teams qualified to move on to the state meet. The week prior to regionals, prior to state, we found out the girls received the Academic Achievement Award from the OSSAA. We went to state. The boys ended up being 13th. The girls were 10th. Gavin Lack finished 25th. Brianna Brown was 11th. It was 16th. And Kinley Davis made All-State, finishing 11th. By finishing in the top 25, those three qualified for the Meet of Champions. That's where they take the top 25 out of 2A, 3A, 6A, and let them run. At that meet, Kinley was 13th, Brianna was 8th, and Gavin was 19th. By finishing in the top 20, they to the Oklahoma-Arkansas meet. By finishing in the top 20, they've qualified for the Oklahoma team. This last weekend, they went to Oklahoma-Arkansas meet. Brianna was 23rd, Kinley was 24th, and Gavin was 27th. The boys were first, and the girls were second at that meet. So they had an outstanding year this year. I couldn't be more proud of that group.
Congratulations on a great season.
And those of you who did not get out of the room before I sat down have to stay now for the rest of the meeting. Nobody listens.
Thank you all for coming. We appreciate it.
Proceeding with our meeting, next on the agenda is the audience to visitors. We did not have any sign up for this evening, so that brings us to the superintendent's report. Dr. Floyd.
All right, thank you, sir. Board members, you have a copy of an article there at your place. It's on the top of your packet. It says Oklahoma State Department of Education and permanent pre-K classroom inside nursing home, mutually beneficial. We were proud to be featured in the state superintendent's newsletter last week, I believe it was, with an article about our intergenerational early childhood program, and so nice to get recognized with that, and that is a wonderful program that we're very proud of. Also wanted to say a word about the 1 cent sales tax. You might have seen last week where the Oklahoma Council on Public Affairs Impact, you don't have anything on this, I just wanted to mention something about it. But in my estimation, that's one of the only ways that we're going to be able to get teachers significant raises this year and kind of move up from 48th, 49th in the nation in teacher pay. So I was a little disappointed to see that the Oklahoma Council on Public Affairs Impact, OCPAI, came out against that and filed a Supreme Court injunction basically halting that effort before it ever got started, really. The timing of that originally was designed to go before the voters basically a year from now in November of 2016 to put that vote to the public to see if the public wanted to raise 1 cent sales tax to go directly for teacher pay raises. This group contends that it is unconstitutional because it does not focus on one sole topic, and they say it focuses not only on teacher pay raises but also on unrelated funding that does not involve teacher pay raises, also a sales tax proposal, and also restructuring the state appropriations process. So I don't know if they'll be successful or not in that effort, but it's kind of disappointing to me to know that we're coming into a very difficult legislative session, and this would give us our best opportunity to provide significant teacher raises. And so I'm kind of in hopes that that doesn't go anywhere, and we get to at least put before the voters a year from now a vote that people will step up to the plate and help out our very deserving teachers statewide.
Dr. Floyd, can I ask a question about that? What is the likelihood, they talked in a video that we saw that they might split the items and that would kind of get them around that? Do you know if that's even an option?
I would say everything's on the table at this time. The state Supreme Court could say, no, you don't have an argument here that is plausible, so just tell the other side to move forward. Or they could say, yeah, you do have an argument here, and so those, David Bourne and those others that are kind of advocating for that would have to change it in some form or fashion. And so I think a lot of things could happen between now and this time next year. But they didn't even get to the point of being able to start collecting signatures that were necessary in order to put it on the ballot, and they kind of halted them before they ever got to that point. So it'd be interesting to keep an eye on that and see where it goes. And then turning to a different topic, more nationally, you might have seen where it looks like we might be getting closer, Congress might be getting closer to redoing No Child Left Behind and reauthorizing that by shifting authority for K through 12 schools to the states instead of the federal, kind of heavy-handed federal oversight that we currently have and have had for 13 years. And so that proposal, it looks like it has kind of been agreed upon by the House and the Senate, and now goes to a conference negotiation and probably this week sometime. But that certainly does not mean that it's a done deal. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that. And let's see, I wanted to point out 2 or 3 things here, that some of the language in that proposal to reauthorize No Child Left Behind is asking states to intervene at the bottom 5% of the schools in their states, and also to help schools that have significantly high dropout rates. That's one item. Number 2 is there would be no provision for Title I portability, which is a good thing for public schools, I think, because I think if they had included Title I portability, that kind of would have been a first step toward vouchers, in my opinion, nationally. And it also rolls together many smaller programs that would now be rolled into a much bigger block grant, and I think that's a good thing for states and for local school districts. It also incorporates a new program for early childhood education that made its way into the compromise plan. I think that's a good thing as well, and it decreases the authority of the Secretary of Education federally, which is also a good thing for states and local school districts, I think. So it'd be interesting to keep our eye on that and see what happens federally with the reauthorization of No Child Left Behind. Certainly there's no guarantee that that's a done deal, because it's got to go to that conference committee now, and anytime you get a bunch of R's and D's together, the chances of them coming to agreement are not great these days. But then also, if they can come to a decision, well, then I think it has to go back for approval of the full Congress and then to the President's desk, I believe. So we're a ways away from a done deal there, but at least it seems like they are making progress. Board members, I wanted to share with you that Mike Honigsberg has been working with us extremely well, and he's with the Office of Emergency Management, and he has graciously gone out to all of our schools at our request to take a look at safety and security issues and talk to the principals about making sure that their plans are updated and providing them with suggestions of where the safest places are in their particular campus, should they need to put students and employees there, and a number of other issues. So that process has now been completed, and I think it'll benefit all of our campuses. So appreciate Mike doing that. Board members, I wanted to let you know also that 3 of you, no more than 3, since we don't have this meeting posted and we can't have a quorum there, but the Board of Education members are invited to attend the Cherokee Strip Community Foundation Board of Trustees meeting that will be right here in this room this coming Thursday, this week. Lunch will be at 11:30 and the meeting will be at noon. And as long as we don't have a quorum present, 3 of you are invited. They wanted us to be sure and invite some of you, and you have the option to leave before their business meeting starts, they said, if you want to. But it'll be the Cherokee Strip Community Foundation. Also, they're inviting the EPS Foundation board members, and then some of our school board members as well. So we need to let them know who's coming so they can plan for lunch. Okay, so would some of y'all like to attend that? See a yes from Tori.
I'm a trustee, so I'll be there.
You're already there. Amanda? There's, yep, I guess we better call it good on that so we don't have a quorum. Thank you very much, and we'll see y'all there at that meeting. We did get a letter from the Oklahoma State Department of Education at the end of October about our accreditation status, and I'm pleased to report that district accreditation status is, quote unquote, accreditation with no deficiencies, so that's good news. And we're going to hear more about our accountability and accreditation status here in just a minute from Mr. Stafford and Mr. Rader. What we, let's see, yeah, this is all part of, all falls under the superintendent's report, so if it's all right with you, I'll forge right on ahead. Please do. All righty, thank you. Y'all are just glad that I'm done with my part, right? That was pretty quick, short and sweet. You'll notice, thank you. You'll notice, board members, items 1, 2, and 3 under academic and strategic planning reports. All of this will be encompassed in these next reports, maybe not necessarily in that order, but we will be covering information about annual dropout report, annual student college remediation report, a little bit about testing and A through F, and then we've asked a representative from each of our strategic planning committees to come and state very briefly, 3 minutes or less, Coach. These people are going to be timing you when you get up there, like they do me on my superintendent's report. They get the hook out if you go too long. But they'll be stating what their committee's goal is, and then briefly report to you on the specific results up to this point. And you all know we've got the strategic plan in place, and we've now started the work on that strategic, all of those strategic planning committees. They're going to briefly share with you the results to this point, and then where we may be headed from this point. All right, believe that is the extent of my report. Where do you want to start, gentlemen?
Start with the strategic planning groups, maybe going up and visiting about their...
All right, if you will come up to the microphone over here, and I know that we've got some handouts and then we've got some PowerPoint presentations, so you guys will just have to direct us to which is which. Board members, you have a PowerPoint handout there. It says Enid Public Schools. There's, I guess we'll have it up on the screen as well too. And then you've got a handout for the Curriculum and Instruction Committee. And then Coach Hayes has this one that says EPS character strategic plan update, so I guess that's where we'll start. Coach?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Just want to give you a brief update on where we're at as far as our character development. I think it's very important for the future of the district, and it's been a lot of fun getting into it and seeing the potential for this. Basically, what we've done up to this point is we've done our research district-wide. We asked each campus to answer the following questions and send their feedback to us, and the questions are on page 2, behind the cover page. What would you like to see a character education curriculum accomplish? What are your concerns in implementing a character education curriculum? Are you currently using a curriculum or program? If yes, which one? What are the campus obstacles in trying to implement a character education program? And would you be willing to help provide leadership to the district in implementation of character education curriculum? We wanted the school's feedback, kind of see where they stood when this happens and what their concerns were. I've condensed it into a small few slides. All of their feedback is enclosed at the end if you want to go through and see all the details. And so you've got access to both here in this packet. First question, what would you like to see a character curriculum accomplish? Number 1, basic citizenship skills, leadership skills, shared language between campuses and teachers, relationship and social values, basic core values, decision-making skills, and communication skills. At the back of this packet, there's quite a bit more detail on this particular topic. I tried to condense it into
3 minutes or less.
That's right.
Okay,
That's
good,
exactly
good,
right.
good answer.
Thank you, sir. What are your concerns in implementing a character education curriculum? The campuses reported back that they were concerned about having the time to do it correctly, having the resources and training, having the staff support, not seeing as just another program that's being thrown out there to be done among the many potentially as a teacher you work through. Teachers' plates are already full. Consistency among campuses, parent involvement's not strong, accountability and measurement, and lack of fall through in the past. Personally, I think parent involvement not being strong is all the more reason to do it. That's just I don't see that as an obstacle. I see that as a reason. What are the campus obstacles in trying to implement a character education program? The time, the training, the funding, varying accountability from site to site based on buy-in, lack of support from the home situation, and hesitant to go away from great expectations of another curriculum that was chosen. I skipped the front page of that. I'm sorry about that. Are you currently using a curriculum or program? If yes, which one? 16 campuses don't have a specific program that they're using. 12 campuses reported that they're involved in some extent to another with the Great Expectations character program, which Jane has a lot of experience with as well. Hope Outreach Parenting Ministry was recommended. Rise and Shine is a program that was recommended. Prairie View uses something called ROAM, which is an acronym for their character citizenship values that they value. PBIS, Why Try Inc., and there was many, many examples which are also included back of things that are just happening on specific campuses that address that aspect of student development. Finally, would you be willing to help provide leadership to the district in implementation of a character education program? Several schools provided a list of staff members who they thought would be appropriate that they would recommend to be involved in the selection and implementation process. And so we have a list of names that would represent the district as a whole in the selection process, which I think is important for buy-in, that we have a lot of people providing input since it's going to affect their campuses directly. Next steps, to form a selection committee from the staff members who are recommended by the campuses as well as selected community members. One of the things in the original strategic plan that was recommended is that we involve members of the community because this potentially could be a hot topic. What values are you teaching my kid? What if I don't agree with those values? Those type of things. And so we need to identify members from the community that would be respected by the community whose input would be valued. Identify curriculum that fits our expectations, probably the greatest challenge. And then site visits of districts that are using the curriculum to see whether or not it's effective. And then select curriculum and create the plan for training, implementing, and evaluating its success. 2 minutes and 59 seconds, I'm done.
Yeah, that was good. Questions from board members for Coach or any of these committee? You have any other committee members here? Or
Jane's here. Yeah.
Jane's here, okay. All right. Questions?
When you say you ask each school, every worker there, every teacher, anyone who works for the district was allowed input, or how do you do that?
No, what we did is we sent out this survey to the principals and allowed them to administer it accordingly. Some schools I know asked for whole input, and I know Enid High School was one where we were asked to give some input. So I think some schools targeted specific individuals that had a passion for it. I think it varied.
Coach Yates, it appears that most of the schools are offering, and Jane, some form of curriculum. So the consistency maybe is an important key.
I think it is a big key, and I think that's one of the issues that were raised in that, you know, are we going to be comparing apples to apples when we look at whether or not this is making a difference? Is accountability going to look the same from campus to campus? Are expectations of the faculty going to be the same?
Kind of a follow-up to that, since so many campuses are already using Great Expectations, what is the likelihood that that would be, what would kind of be rolled with?
Well, I know Jane can probably speak to that more so than I, and she's a big fan, and it's made a big difference on the campuses that she's been on. I know primarily in the districts it's been used at the elementary school level.
Do they have curriculum that fits the needs of middle and high school?
Great Expectations has a secondary program, yes.
Okay.
Anybody else? All right, thank y'all for heading up that committee. We appreciate it.
You bet, thank you.
Thank you.
So I will do so and
Okay.
include it in my 3 minutes. Yes. I am chairing Goal 3, which is community and parent partnerships. You heard quite a bit about it at the last meeting, so I'll be brief. The focus of our committee over the 3 years, obviously, is about building more partnerships, and we divided that into 3 categories: communication, parent engagement, and then also community partnerships. So we started this year with communication because it made sense to us that without quality communication, you cannot accomplish the other 2. So if you will turn to the back of the page, I'll give you some specific information about our progress this year on our Year 1 initiatives. We have provided communication training, which you saw a sample of last month, to all of our school employees, and we're continuing to break down specific things that would be useful to them depending on their role in the district. We have adopted a more effective and easier to use website program, which would not have been possible without the support of our technology program and Mindy Hayes specifically. It went live, training continues, and content continues to grow, but that's always true of a website. So we're really pleased where we are with that goal, with that strategy. All of the schools are implementing marketing and communication plans, turning those into me so I can support them as they promote their schools. So the 3 items listed in blue are those that I feel like we have met the requirements of the plan. It doesn't mean we're done. It doesn't mean we won't do better, but I feel like we've invested where we've been asked to. So the 2 in red are the ones that we continue to work on the most, ensuring our communication supports the needs of culturally diverse students and families. So what we are trying to do is to develop a database as a starting point of district-wide letters in multiple languages that we can use as resources at the building level where it's prepared for them, ready to go, because they may not have a resource at the building level to translate those letters. And then the final one, to create a campaign to improve data integrity for students and staff. We know that we can use Blackboard and email and text all day long, and if it's not going to the right phone, it really didn't matter. And so we are working, and most importantly, if a child is injured at school and we cannot find mom and dad, that's a very serious matter. And so we are working on a campaign to make sure everybody understands the importance of accurate information. And our InfoSnap program, which allows all that to be updated online, is a critical piece of that strategy. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I know we did the initial push of letting parents in the community know about InfoSnap and other ways to personalize how the communication is coming. Mm-hmm. But obviously not everybody pays attention at first, and it gets forgot about, and then an event happens, and they say, well, why didn't I know? Have we built in that even though we did the initial push when we went out, every quarter, every semester, we'll send additional information to remind parents of how they can personalize communication and coming to them to what fits them best.
Research tells us that you have to tell someone something 5 different ways, 5 times before you can even expect that they've listened to you.
Well, since I signed up for everything, I get it all 5 ways immediately.
So yes, it's very much, it's really twofold. Blackboard Connect, which you're referring to, is a very important piece of that because that's the communication piece. If we can get them to also up-to-date in InfoSnap, it corrects that data everywhere, not just in the communication piece. So we will definitely continue. That will be the campaign, is the ongoing promotion of those programs. So yes, sir.
Amber, I'd just like to say you guys came a long way in a short time.
Well, thank you.
I mean, those goals, I've seen them in action, and they're really good, so.
I appreciate that. We've had a lot of support at the building level, and it wouldn't be possible without that.
Speaking of communication, Burns Hargis, president of OSU, spoke today at Rotary Club, and I was encouraged that making the no-win call of closing school because of bad weather is not unique to public schools. He had the same issue and reiterated that it is a no-win call. Isn't that right, Willa Jo? She was there today. And so they face the same issue, but part of that relates to this on how we communicate that and a whole bunch of other things. But at least we have better communication tools, far better communication tools now than we used to have. And so I applaud you and your committee for your work. Thank you very much. I will, yes. And who's next? What's the next? Huh? No, I mean after me. Okay, so you all have heard me talk for months now about facilities, and looks like we're coming closer and closer to honing in on a doable bond election plan, and looks like we will move forward with our called board meeting on December the 7th to officially call for that bond election. That's 5:30 here in this room. And once the board officially calls for the bond election facilities plan, well then the work will begin between then and February the 9th to do a lot of presentations and information sharing both out in the community but also within the school system, everything from faculty meetings to PTA meetings and booster club meetings, etc. So we got a lot of work ahead of us, but I'll stop there on facilities because you all have heard me talk. December 7th, that's right. Be easy to remember. No, be easy to remember. All right, that's facilities, and then Doug and Sherry Hendry and Jeff Erbel are heading up the Curriculum and Instruction Committee.
You should have received a handout on your desk. I've cut off the bottom of it because I stapled it wrong. I don't think that that's for your convenience.
Yeah, find it.
Anyway, we covered the curriculum and instruction on the strategic planning. This is a great time to come in as an assistant superintendent because the stakeholders, parents, teachers have spoken about what they want for Enid Public School students regarding curriculum. And so this is a great time to come in and be able to use this as our guide as we move forward. If you look at the action plan on the second page, it basically talks about our action steps, making sure that all learners are fully equipped at every level to be responsible, well-rounded global citizens. And what we have started doing is aligning our curriculum. So we have been working with our subject matter consultants who are at the secondary level and our curriculum specialists at the elementary level, and working with grade level departments on aligning curriculum. So what we're doing is we're identifying what is essential for students to know, not what's nice to know, but what they've got to know. And so what we're working on is creating a pacing guide. And a pacing guide is basically just saying that in a certain amount of time, we're going to make sure and cover a certain amount of standards. And then what we do is we take that and put that on a calendar, and that's called our progression map. And so what we do is we ensure that we're staying on track, making sure that we're getting all of the standards taught within a given amount of time. And so we've been working on that, and I'm happy to say that we are very close to being done with having our progression guides and our pacing calendars done, K through 12. We're also making sure that when we are looking at our standards, we're also looking at technology integration. Jeff is on our committee, and he's been working really hard with the technology instructional coaches on making sure we're embedding technology into our standards because those are important for us to remember. And sometimes that seems like a very separate process for teachers, but we want to teach them how to embed that into their instruction and it feel very natural instead of something extra. We've also been working on a response intervention. We are working, if you're not familiar with that, basically that's a pyramid of interventions to making sure that we're supporting students at all levels along the way of need, not only those that need help, but also those that need enrichment opportunities. And so we're looking at streamlining our guidelines and our protocols for that process, and that's an ongoing process that we're working on. We're going to provide continuous professional development this summer to help support that. As you know, we're also a professional learning community, which means we have really been working on meeting the needs of every student every time. That's not a meeting, that's a frame of mind. We've sent a large majority of our staff to PLC training, and now we're in the process of systematically coming up with a process for making sure that we're answering the 4 guided questions. What are students learning? How do we know they're learning? What are we doing for those that aren't? So we're making sure that we're answering all those questions when we meet as a group. We're also looking at a research-based professional lesson plan. It's called Anatomy of a Lesson. It breaks down all 5 components into best practices. So we're coming up with a common lesson plan template district-wide that makes sure that we're reaching the needs of all students and all learners. And so those are the things that we're currently working on. On the back side, we plan to have a curriculum guide. So we have a lot of new teachers, obviously, that come in every year. And a lot of times the very first question is, what do I teach and where do I start? And so what this will do is this will give new teachers as they come in an idea of where we progress along the way with curriculum, what amount of time we have to cover that. So those are things that we have projected to be done fall of 2016. So when we start next school year, all of those pacing guides and mapping calendars will all be online so every teacher can have access to those and use those as their guide. What will come out of that is if we're following a common map and calendar, it allows us to have common assessments where 3 teachers in 3 different buildings can start comparing and contrasting their results of some of the assessments that they give students so that we can look at best practices. Hey, what did you do over here in which you had students really excel? And so we're going to add standards, blueprints, all the things that teachers would need for the school year. So we're excited about our progress, and it has certainly taken a lot of teamwork and hard work amongst our teachers. Any questions?
I think that is really good work because it brings curriculum and instruction into a cohesive set of standards and guides and common assessments and vocabulary, all the things that he just mentioned, kind of hones it down into a common theme that regardless of whether you're a 30-year teacher or a brand new teacher, you can rely on. And so appreciate the work of your committee. Any questions for Doug before we move on?
All right, thank you.
All right, next group is Assessment Accountability, and Lynn Peters and Leslie Wickert are heading up that committee.
This goal is for high expectations of continual evaluation and then the communication of those results. The majority of the work for this goal is 2016 to 2018. But we have identified the district assessments, which was part of this year's goal, and then talked about those timelines. And then from there, we want to ensure that all of our teachers are able to communicate that information, to understand that information, to analyze those results. And so there will be some training that we will provide, and some of that's already begun, particularly through the instructional coach department. And then additionally, we're going to work towards student-led conferences, so that communication of the results is part of this goal. And so we want to make sure that all of our stakeholders are involved there, including our parents and those learners, the students. And so that's what brings in that student-led conferences. And then finally, out of this committee, we want to make sure that we are sharing information that's beyond the test score. And so our committee came up with a State of the District report, and we want to talk about what good things are going on in our district, and that it's more than just the test data. Amen. And yes. And so part of our work this fall has been identifying those non-negotiable district assessments, the Otis Lennon, which helps us in the elementary grades, deal with the gifted program. Our benchmark assessments are the STAR testing. Of course, we have our state mandated tests, the language proficiency for ELLs, and then the ACT for the juniors. So those are our basic testing schedule for all of our students in the district. And so we want to ensure that we have enough training and then that we communicate those results and analyze those appropriately.
Anything to add, Leslie?
When the STAR data, for example, when would that be communicated back?
To anyone?
To parents?
Yeah, we have particularly 3 windows minimum, but I know that our teachers give the STAR test frequently. And so you have that initial kind of pre-assessment. You do one in the middle of the year and then one towards the spring.
There's also with the benchmarks, the windows are set at the beginning of the year for all 3 benchmarks, but we encourage progress monitoring throughout the year. So that's conversation. So they do have progress monitoring. In addition to the benchmark, it's parent-teacher conferences. Anytime they get a report, they can print a report out if they need to send it home to a child, or if a parent requests for some data. Reading Sufficiency Act, that's part of the folder that we have for those students that show that their progress. So those reports and anything with the STAR can be, relayed to parents at any time, if it's asked for by the parent.
Right, I understand that, and I know some campuses provide that data. Parent-teacher conference. Some do not, which I know I asked this last year and made the statement that STAR data or whatever data is available to show the progress of your child or your student should be available at every meeting. So again, I would like to make the statement to the district that although we do have some campuses doing it, I would like to ensure that all campuses are making this information available.
And that's part of the work of this group because we're identifying those district assessments, and so we're a work in progress.
Anybody else?
I would also say that on that, I agree with you 100%. It should be accessible to everyone. With the Reading Sufficiency Act and how we have to report it out, I think we probably do a really good job of that in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, 3rd grade, because we have to get parent signatures. By the first parent-teacher conference, has to be reported out again towards the spring. So again, we do a pretty good job of it. Really, and it's not a good excuse. What we run into is time. In the 4th and 5th grades, we have a different reporting system, the report card, and different things like that people are looking at. It's hard to get it all into a 15-minute parent-teacher conference. But again, that's one of the messages we really have to send to parents is that we're available for that information at other times. And I think that goes back to communicating the fact that you don't just have to get that information during parent-teacher conferences. You can schedule that anytime you want to. And, you can schedule a time with the teacher during parent-teacher or during any of the planned times. And that's one of the things that you're exactly right, have to do better as a district, is just communicate the fact that it's your child and we're willing to talk to you about it at any time. It doesn't just have to be on 2 nights or a Friday morning during the school year.
Well, and I also think we need to do a better job taking the opportunity of sharing this information.
Right.
Everybody talks about the A through F report card. They say, yes, it's flawed. There's issues with it. But what other assessments are there for us to know whether or not a teacher is doing a good job or not?
Right.
And because I'm familiar with STAR, I've gone through the data and I know that it shows where the students started the school year and where they're progressing. It shows the growth. And to me, that's how you measure if a teacher's doing an effective job or not. It's not, okay, they're testing 98 percentile. Well, they came in at 97 percentile. Right. They've grown this much through that school year. So I think we need to do a better job taking the opportunity of sharing that information, whether or not parents pay attention to it. At least we give it to them, make it available to them.
And I will say probably at the middle school level, we create a culture of students with that being our universal screening method for students in reading and math. By the time students get into middle school, they're advocates for themselves. They pretty much know their zone of proximal development as far as what books they should be reading. And most of the middle school campuses have student-led parent-teacher conferences, so they're typically sharing that information out at their parent-teacher conferences and telling their parents where they are, where they started at the beginning of the year, and where they are now. So as we really get into the secondary level, the students, there's this culture's being created where they know where they are, they know exactly what books they need to be picking out for themselves, and they know the growth they've had. So we're really seeing a shift with this being a universal screening tool that by the time they get into secondary, middle school, they're talking the talk about their progress in reading, which is pretty impressive.
That's great. Yeah. Thank you, ladies. Appreciate it. Next committee is Personnel and Professional Development, and that's headed up by Randy Rader and Matt Holson.
First, I need to apologize. I misread my email and thought it said a 50-minute presentation. So I'll forego the 20-page report
Thank you,
and
sir.
the 30-minute PowerPoint, but let me tell you, it was amazing. The purpose of the personnel.
Just go ahead with your 20 pages.
Okay, we can bring that up. Technical difficulty, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
The purpose of the Professional Development and Personnel Committee is to recruit and retain highly qualified teachers and support professionals. And so the committee began by forming a district-wide committee, a committee that Enid Public Schools had in the past, which is made up of members across the district. We have all levels of educators from early childhood through high school. We have our district specialists. We have building and district-level administrators. And what we have been working on since the formation of this committee is finding out where our staff is and what their needs are. So we've surveyed the certified, support, building level and district level personnel to see what they feel they need most training in and what would be most beneficial. So we have conducted those surveys, and with that data, we have now been using that data to plan our first professional development day in January, which meets the needs of those various parties, hitting technology, RTI, the response to intervention, and ELL at the elementary and secondary level. We're continually working on developing a district-wide professional development calendar, which will have the opportunities for professional development training for teachers to look and plan, which would run throughout the year as well as through the summer. The district is also in the process at the secondary level, this has begun, and working at implementing at the elementary level, generating a database of teachers who have attended training who can then come back and share that training, share that expertise, and share that knowledge with other teachers within the district. And so that's the work we are continuing to work on, tracking professional development points electronically as to have that record and that accountability for the teachers. So this is where the Professional Development Committee is.
Questions? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And our last committee on the strategic plan is extracurricular opportunities, and that's headed up by Candace and Jim. That's right.
Okay, we also found to get our handout to you, so Mr. Beerschmidt will be giving that to you now.
Okey-doke.
As you know, our goal is the enrichment opportunities to enrich students' experiences through and extracurricular activities by providing excellent programs, facilities, and personnel support based on student interest. And when you look at our timeline, ours is sort of pushed a little further out than some of the others, but the first thing we had to do was to gather up the list of things that are actually offered to all of our students. And as you can see on one side, you have that list, and it's pretty extensive. There are a lot of opportunities that our students in that total of Enid. Our committee realizes that some parts of Enid perhaps have better opportunities than others, and that's one of the big hard things we're trying to work on, is how to get all of those opportunities out to everybody. Okay, the second thing we needed to do was to get student input. So currently, the other side of your paper has the nice flyer that actually Ms. Fitzgerald put together for us, and it went out to email to all the secondary students, and there's a survey. And that link to the survey, for example, Emerson students are doing it this week. So 6th graders did it today, tomorrow my 8th graders will do it, and the day after the 7th graders will do it. And they're answering 5 basic questions for us. What we need to know from them is, are we not offering something that they want? Okay, now of course, depending on what they tell us, will sort of tell us what to do next. If it's something we can then put into play for them, then we certainly want to look at how to do that next. And if you look at, again, at our timeline, The final thing we're supposed to work on is getting everyone more involved in all of the activities that we have available. How exactly we're going to do that is what we'll be working on next.
I think from the origination of our committee meetings, it was certainly expressed that we would like to increase all of the numbers of our kids in extracurricular activities at the high school. So looking at the cooperation it's going to take with some of our city things that are already in place, some of our Pee-wee programs, some of those things, I think we can come to a very cooperative effort before the end of next year, school year, to start going forward, getting more kids signed up, maybe getting some rides to those weekend activities and getting some of those interests in place at a younger age for many of our students. And I think down the road, that's our specific. I'm sorry. I didn't know. Sure. I didn't know she was on there. I knew I'd pushed it. But anywho, yeah, I know I pushed the, okay.
Were you looking for an answer?
Yes.
Yeah, I am looking for the answer.
Help me,
So that is something that we looked at from the beginning and the surveys going forward. And, you know, it was surprising to me when you put all the things together that we do at the high school all the way down through. It's very surprising how much we offer. And
It
I
is.
know there's already an increase in the middle school participation that just because of the discussion of it. So,
We have a ski team?
sir?
We have a ski team?
Yes.
Is Jason still the sponsor for that, Maryland?
We do not, the school doesn't sponsor.
Well, but
Right. We have a bowling team, which is not school sponsored. We came into an agreement with Oakwood Bowl years ago, and you have to go to Enid High School to be on the bowling team, and they actually look at the grades of the kids, but you're not specifically with Enid High School. And our ski team is financed with public fund, with donations. Mm-hmm.
so what, I'm sorry. If it was Ernie, it's okay.
Excuse me.
If we, when we get the results from the survey back and we find that there's something we're not offering that students are wanting, what is the timeline for being able to, if we can, implement and begin?
Go ahead.
Well, it depends on what it is they're asking for. Do we have the personnel? Do we have coaches?
Facilities.
Then we do have, do we have facilities? And if not, can we get them? So part of that will depend on what those answers are.
And I definitely agree that we want more high school students to be involved in extracurricular activities, but I think we all understand the sooner you get them in to the extracurricular system, i.e. end of grade school, middle school, the more they stay through that pipeline, as opposed to getting them introduced at high school at the beginning.
Develop that grouping, that teaming, and those things that go forward. And you look at the top line on what it is and has proven that they do better in the classroom, they come to school more often, and so down the road, it just plays into everything we're looking at educationally.
Right, just like Lynn mentioned earlier, that it's about a lot more than just one test score. There are many, many studies that show the benefits of extracurricular activities.
Oh, yeah.
And some of what you just mentioned, attendance and keeps them in school and all that. Yeah, I think this committee is just as important as all of the other ones, because you roll all of these, this committee work together, and it all is pointing to the benefit of students in some form or fashion. So appreciate your
Dr.
work
Floyd,
on that. Questions?
I have a couple real quick. First of all, just curious, the ski team, is it snow or water?
Snow.
Snow skiing, okay. And on that note, bowling team and ski team, you said are not actually school sponsored, yet they're listed under EPS offers them. So I don't understand how we can list them as something we.
There's extracurricular and there's co-curricular.
Yeah.
So that would
Okay.
fall under the co-curricular.
Okay.
Co-curricular.
Okay, that makes more sense to me than if it were that. Okay.
And we checked everything and make sure the laws were good on it.
So we support it, we just don't necessarily sponsor it.
And some are OSSAA sponsored events that you can get a state championship in, and others like a co-curricular event would not be OSSAA sponsored necessarily, and so they can participate if there's a sponsor or somebody, some employee that is willing to help out with that, but they
And wear
wouldn't
like
necessarily be
Enid
able
High
to.
School
And there's other schools
shirts
around
and
Enid
things.
that have a bowling team.
Okay,
That is not their school bowling team.
but like our bowling team, actually, it says it's Enid High School, but,
And that's all legal.
okay, all right, perfect. Thank you for the
Those would
explanation.
be Enid sponsored.
As a co-curricular event, not extracurricular. Do we, how do we fund those programs? Do you
There
know?
is no funding for
Okay,
that program.
that's the difference in co-curricular and extracurricular.
On that, not to go too much further into this, but one of the questions I do get on the co-curricular, the kids are counted absent if they.
Yes.
And that's
You know,
probably
you've
the
got a lot
biggest
of-
parent.
You've got a lot of private
is-
clubs and stuff that have been doing those type of things forever.
Well, and just like the confusion on this board, I think parents get confused. They assume it's Enid Public Schools, so if there's
No,
an
it's-
activity,
They're
and I think we,
excused because their parents let them go, but it still counts.
but it still
against their
counts as an
90%
absent,
attendance.
and I think that's caught some parents. I know I've been hit by that a time or
And
two.
a lot of cheer and palm competition, national.
Well,
stuff
and
like that.
I know like middle school baseball, some
Right.
things like that that are club or what, co-curricular, so.
Right.
But
Anybody else?
And Mr. Beersmith, if we have more questions, we can ask Siri.
Yes. It's all right there.
She's smart. Thank you all very much.
Use of technology.
Yeah, use of technology. I do want to say thank you to not only our chairpersons that reported tonight, but all of the people that helped out on all these committees. And it shows that we are making progress on our agreed-upon strategic plan. And as I said, all that rolled in together is very beneficial for kids. So appreciate everybody's work. Thank you very much. The next items are mostly stipulated in this PowerPoint presentation. And I'm going to turn it over to Doug and Randy, and/or Randy. Is that right?
Yes, I'll start.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, Randy.
We're going to go through our academic report from last year. We are going to take a few more than 3 minutes because it is academics and it's what we do. And I appreciate your questions because, Colin, I think we're going to get into some of what you asked about right here. And I think it's really important that we spend time discussing what we're doing in Enid. Obviously academically. The fun part about all of the strategic planning and everything like that is seeing how really as a district we're coming together for the good of the whole child and seeing how that really relates to academics and just growing kids in general. So having said that, I'm just going to jump in. These are some of the things that we're going to report out to you. The Reading Sufficiency Act, again, which we talked about a little bit. That does affect, or it has in the past affected our kindergarten through our third grade students. However, because of the way the law is written now, if students do not pass the third grade test, reading test, and are retained or are promoted due to a good cause exemption, we're still tracking them, and actually we'll track them until they begin to take the EOIs and test out in that manner. So really, the middle schools will be affected by the Reading Sufficiency Act next year, and we've already begun communicating with teachers about that. One of the things that we have done in the district is we've created a folder that really tracks that information that goes from one teacher to the next. And it's a pretty simple idea, but it's pretty powerful in the fact that it has all of the scores right there, so teachers don't have to dig through a lot of information to get that. And then that document has supporting documents in it, whether it's star reports or other things like that as well. So this is our Reading Sufficiency Act information. Just a reminder, what that really is lining out in the 1 through 7. Those are the different ways that students, if they don't pass the third grade test, can get promoted on to fourth grade. And we had 146 students that were unsatisfactory last year. And if you work through those numbers, the first good cause exemption is if they're ELL with less than 2 years of intensive reading instruction, they can be promoted. The second good cause exemption are our students that take the OAP. Those are our real, generally our multi-handicap students that just can't really take the standardized test. And so those students are pretty much automatically promoted. Many of them through the portfolio do get proficiency level. However, there are a few that are determined unsatisfactory, but they're not retained. Score of a 45th percentile on an alternative assessment. We use the ITBS. Over the last 2 years that we've done this, we've had very few students pass based on that. I think this last year we had 8, which is more than we had the previous year. Portfolio, that information is put together. The thing about the portfolio is it has to be, all of the work in that portfolio throughout the year has to meet certain guidelines, and it has to be on grade level. We've never had a student promoted through that, so this year we had 0. The 5th one is students with disabilities that took the regular assessment but have been retained previously. So if a student's on an IEP and they don't pass, then they can be retained. However, if they have been retained previously, that is a reason for a good cause exemption. Again, all of these good cause exemptions require conversations with a committee and parents, and so it's all communicated out. The 6th one is students previously retained for a total of 2 years. If students have been retained, if you don't want a 12-year-old third grader, and that's difficult for everyone. So, but those students that are retained are guaranteed some real intensive training and or remediation, and we're working with that. And then with extreme medical circumstances, this is one that was added last year. There are students, matter of fact, we had one here in Enid at one point that was just couldn't take the test, and it wasn't fair to that student not to be promoted based on that. And then I've added another couple. They can be promoted if based on STAR, and we had 17 students that if at any time during the 3rd grade year they reach the 40th percentile on STAR on any of their STAR assessments that they take, they will be promoted on that. And then based on school parent reading committee, we had 41 students promoted. So if you'll look, we promoted 104, and last year we retained 42. If you just add those numbers straight across, they don't add up. So if you go back and number crunch those, just take the 18 out from the second good cause exemption, and those are the students with the disabilities. We didn't add that into it because they're pretty much promoted automatically. So that's the reading sufficient.
Randy, I've got a couple questions for you on this.
Okay.
You said based on STAR, if they reach 40th percentile, is that the only stipulation, or is it, do they have to grow from a certain percentile to 40 percentile?
It's the only stipulation. Because of STAR, when they're taking the 3rd grade test, or the 3rd grade, not test, but when they're taking the STAR assessment, it looks at the grade level that they're on, and so if any point they hit the 40th percentile, then by law we're able to promote them off of that.
What is 40th percentile? What is that equivalent to? I mean,
it's the average. It's within the average range of a 3rd grade student is what it is. So what it is I mean, really, to be honest with you, that's the number that was set aside by legislation. Mm-hmm. But what that means, if you hit the 40th percentile on an assessment like that, is we all know 50th percentile is average. They have a built-in equivalency that is either up or down 10 points. So really a 40 to a 60 is what they consider average based on statistics. And so 40th percentile, it means that they perform as well on that test as 40th percent of the other 3rd graders.
And the other question I have is with number 2 and number 5, with students taking the OAP, and then those that take the regular assessment that are retained in previous year. Am I correct in what I remember with my conversations with my son's teachers? Basically, you have to make a decision going in as to which one you're going to take, correct?
Yes, and the OAP, the OAP is really reserved for a very small number of students, and they're the students that really aren't on just your typical IEP.
And once you've decided to go that direction, that kind of starts you off into a separate path from regular ed for the rest of your time through the school district. Is that correct?
Generally, I mean, anything on an IEP can be reevaluated. So it's not a given. Just like previously when we had the OMAP, which was what students with disabilities took. Really, that's an IEP team decision. Generally, you don't see students that qualify to take the OAP be taken off of that, but it could happen. But again, those children. It's pretty. They need that test. They're not really capable of taking the regular test generally.
And if the standard assessment, it has no ability to adapt for special needs at this time, correct?
Right.
So if a student was able to verbally
give
an answer, or
there are accommodations, but there's no modifications. And so the modifications to the test that the OMAP had was, the pages were visually different. They might have 3 answers versus 4 and different things like that. We don't have that option anymore, but there are accommodations. So if it's written into the IEP, say that a student just really struggles with knowing their math facts, and so if it's written into their IEP that they can use a calculator, then they could use a calculator. Sometimes that they take it in a different setting. They take it in a small group setting. There's lots of accommodations that can be made for students with disabilities, but as far as a change to the way the test looks, there's not a change. And some of the accommodations are even, a regular education student pretty much has to take the whole test in that setting. You can build into an IEP that a student might need to take frequent, my R's. I was Wandy Waddle for a while. Frequent breaks so that they could do that. And so, like I said, there are several accommodations that can be written in, but they have to be written into the IEP. You can't just make it up at the last minute. And
when do they have to be written into the IEP by? Anytime
previous to the test. You could meet the day before, and if the IEP team decided that that's what was best for the student, then that's what they would do.
Randy, how many total third graders were tested?
Oh gosh.
I see the 146. I was just curious.
I want to say we had about 600. Well, Doug actually might have it here. Sorry. It's probably about 650 students, if I remember right.
675.
Okay, 675. I knew we had it somewhere in our data.
Out of the 675, we had 146 tested unsatisfactory.
Unsatisfactory, yes.
And then out of that, we only retained 42.
Yes. So the committees meet at the end of the year with the reading specialist and teachers from grade level that they're on and above, and they look at their data and they decide whether or not they feel like this child can be successful in the next year based on interventions that we can provide them. So these are the ITBS. Sorry, the ITBS. I got that in my head now. The OCCT results in 2015, and if you'll see out beside in the green, that's the state average. I'll just let you look at that slide there for a second. It's pretty self-explanatory. The first one is math. It's 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade broken apart. And then reading is 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade broken apart. Pretty close to state averages. Obviously not the percentages that we want to see, but we're making progress, I believe.
When you look between 2013 and 2015, you look how high the scores are in 2013. A lot of things have changed from the state level down
Right.
that have affected a lot of that.
Right, and even like what we just talked about, the OMAP not being available anymore for students on an IEP. So I think that's one of the things that kind of is frustrating for us educators. I don't think any of us complain about accountability. We just kind of wish they'd leave it alone for a little bit and let us. We get pretty good at the game that they allow us to play, and then they change the game on us. So those are those results. This is the piece that I really want to talk about a little bit more, and I would tell you this is what I'm the most proud of. This is a really long definition for student growth percentage. Basically what you need to take from this is remember the 40th percentile. If a student grows equivalent to the 40% of their peers, it's considered average growth, which is good growth. And then, of course, we had numbers. In the numbers I'm going to show you, remember, we had some right at the 40th percentile, and we had some that grew at the 90th percentile. I mean, we had a wide range, but really 40th percentile shows what is good. The thing that I like about STAR data, if you know anything about research, and it's all about the number of kids that you can compare to. And literally STAR gives hundreds of thousands of tests every year across the nation. And so they really have the tracking down to a fine art. And so when they say a kid grew at this much, it's pretty accurate. Now, you could have a student that just got on the computer and just kept hitting enter. But generally, kids it's very accurate information. So the other part I like about the student growth percentage, and you're going to hear more about this. I'll talk about this anytime you want to talk about it. But the student growth percentage really compares. If I take the test on September 12th and I score a 900, it only compares me 90 days later. If I take the test, it's only going to compare me to all of the other kids that on September 12th scored a 900. So what it's going to show is how you grew compared to the same students that started with the same score as you. And that's what I really like about it. It really compares apples to apples, oranges to oranges. Now, the things it can't take into account are things like attendance. Were you at school for that same 3 months? Did you get the same kind of interventions in class? Did you do 30 minutes of math or did you do 90 minutes of math? But it shows you how the kids grew on that. So that's what I really like about the student growth percentage. And if anybody ever wants to look further into this data, I can. But this,
Randy,
go ahead.
For board members who have any interest in this at all, I would encourage you to sit with Randy for an hour or so and dig into the data. I might have enjoyed it just because I'm an analyst and that's what I do every day. But it's really eye-opening to see what information is out there. And because we get asked all the time, we say A through F is no good. Well, then how else are you doing it? This really gives us some good information on how we're tracking progress. And once you get into it, look, it's pretty easy to follow. But I definitely encourage board members, if they have an hour, to get with Randy.
And the thing I like about it is it truly does measure growth. I mean, there's no doubt we all know that we have some kids showing up to third grade ready to pass a test. You could give it to them in September and they'd pass it and their school would look wonderful. And we have other kids that aren't quite there yet. And so it really truly does measure growth. These are small numbers. I hope I can even see them. This is our district-wide early literacy. I'm sorry.
You start that,
Yes.
Where and when is it used?
By state law, we have to give the screener 3 times, and we give a fall screening window, and those RSA numbers have to be reported to the state, and then we give a winter benchmark or screening, and then we have again a spring screening time. So we give it 3 times. However, the schools can give it more often. Really, the schools can give it as frequently as they want to for progress monitoring and different things like that for kids.
Is this only in the 3rd grade?
No, actually, we have this pretty much district-wide.
Okay. I was going to say there are some campuses, I think, that are doing this even monthly, sometimes even weekly, as part of their computer lab time, just so that the teachers, they use it as a tool to track their kids' progress.
Right. And it really is available through the high school as well. We have high school students that take this information as well. It's a little bit harder to dig down into that information because the courses get so different. But, and again, I've just looked at the elementary. It's probably easier too because I look at the elementary stuff so often. And Doug's, I'm going to defend him a little bit. It's a lot to learn, and Doug's been busy doing some other stuff, so probably haven't dug into the high school information as much as what we need to. Early literacy is given for pre-K through second grade, or can be given pre-K through second grade. Really, we focus on kindergarten through second grade here. And if you look at this, we had 69% of our kindergartners grew more than 40 SGP points. To me, that's a good number. You know, obviously, I want it at 100 because that's just the way I am. But that shows that that shows growth. 68% of our first graders and 70% of our second graders. So, and again, that's early literacy test. That really measures the foundational skills of a student in early literacy and tells whether or not they're going to be a reader or not. So, you're going to see second grade reported here again. Second grade's a little bit interesting because of the early literacy test. Because second graders are kind of in that transition period, teachers kind of have to make a determination about whether they're going to take the early literacy or the reading test. And so we get a score. The data is not as clean in second grade because we have some kids that start out on early literacy and then maybe the teacher doesn't go back and finish like they should. And part of that's just teachers getting busy and not. We've asked them to follow through. They don't always do that. But 64% of our second graders grew in the reading. 70% of our third graders, 67% of our fourth graders, and 63% of our fifth graders. I think anything above, I talked to some people from Renaissance, and they said if we have a district-wide growth in the 60% like that, it's pretty impressive. And so, and again, we have some pockets that have more growth than others, but we're working.
I have a quick question.
Okay.
You know, we talked about how this is kind of another tool that can be used if a lot of people don't like A through F. Mm-hmm. Is it something that you guys are using as accountability? I mean, we're seeing district-wide, but campus by campus,
yes,
accountability of how they're doing as a school?
Yes, absolutely. And the principals run reports. They talk with teachers. I mean, you really can drill this down. I from my desk can click down to every teacher and see the growth that they're having in their classrooms, and that generates conversations, you know, and you start talking about why, and then you start talking about, well, how much time are you spending reading, how are you doing different things. And so I'm going to talk a little bit more in just a minute about the kinds of conversations that leads to, and the exciting part is how it all fits into the strategic plan and what we're doing as a district and the direction we're going. The hardest part about all of it is it's never going to move as fast as we want it to. And I'm a firm believer, and we really have to build the foundation, and that may take 2 or 3 years, you know, before we get a real good foundation built and start seeing some of the results in our 3rd through 5th grade testing. So this is math. Again, you know, we've been so focused on reading for the last several years that math scores aren't where they need to be, and we know that. We know that in some of our middle school data. And it's generated a conversation in the elementary schools about how we build that foundation. And so it's going to be part of what we do. Some of the instructional supports, this is kind of what we're doing. We're really looking at the time on task and the best practice for how much time. We sent a survey out to teachers about how much time they spend on math in their classroom and how much time they spend on reading in their classroom and what that looks like. And I'll be honest with you, we're all over the place, you know, and as a district and as a district level employee, that's not okay with me. And so one of the things that we're working on is a guide that's going to say, this is what we're going to guarantee you'll get. The curriculum specialists from each building are helping develop that. We're going to say, this is how much time you're going to spend in reading, and these are the components that you're going to do, and these are the things that are important to do. And so we have a lot of turnover, we have a lot of young teachers, and we have to have that consistency in the district, or we're going to be chasing the 3rd through 5th grade tests all the time, and so we've got to build that consistency in there. PLCs are where we have those conversations. We also, in the elementary schools, are working on curriculum pacing. identifying those essential standards. Believe it or not, there are some things in the really kind of the catchphrase on that is the nice to knows versus the need to knows. You know, it's really nice to know about some things, but you have to know about other things. Rhyming is a perfect example. We want kids to be able to rhyme, but it's not really a reading foundational skill. And unless every teacher knows that, then you might have a teacher that spends a lot more time on rhyming than what they need to spend. And so that's the kind of thing that we have to have the conversation about. And it might say, yeah, well, everybody should know that. The reality is not everybody knows that.
I cannot believe I'm about to say this at my third board meeting, but as someone who worked in early childhood for a long time, I do have to disagree with you on that. I feel like there are so many elements in preparing a child to be able to read, and that is one component of a multifaceted amount of things that a child is taught early on that helps them. Now, if it's done at a low level.
I would not disagree with you, and I'm not ever saying we don't teach rhyming.
Right.
We absolutely have to teach rhyming, but I'm just saying as far as a foundational skill, and there is research to back that up, that and again, it's what you get what is nice to know versus need to know, and there are certain things that that we know kids have to have in order to be able to read. And like I said, I would never say it's not a foundational skill, but it's not as essential as some of the other things. Okay. Identifying a technology platform, we have to do things to help our teachers save some time, and if we really want to move to knowing what each student can do by skill, by standard, there are technologies out there that do that, and so we really want to look at some ways to do that. And I think I'm done for a little while.
Are you done for a little while?
Yeah.
All right, let me get up to this microphone here. All right, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about secondary scores. Again, I'll kind of let you study that a little bit. That's a 3-year comparison. Where you see the STAR in 2015, when we give the STAR assessment, which at the middle school level, we do that 3 times. And after a student takes the STAR assessment 3 times, what Renaissance will do is it will correlate a OCCT passage based off of the STAR results. And so as secondary students take the STAR assessment, STAR predicted that 54% of our students would be proficient in math. It projected in 7th grade, 56% would be proficient. And so our growth, according to STAR projections, was much higher than the one-day snapshot when students took the math OCCT. We don't get that information for 8th grade. What's really interesting is, and what's probably the most disappointing, is our math scores. And Mr. Rader touched on that a little bit as far as our focus. And the most alarming one would be our 8th graders at 28%. The state average was 53, which is not anything to brag about. But if we follow that group along the way, we look at them as 6th graders. In 2013, 67% were proficient. And then when they were in 7th grade in 2014, they were 47% proficient. And then all of a sudden, when we get to 8th grade, the 2015 year, we dropped to 28%. And so really having the conversation with the math teachers as to why we have 70% approximately of our kids that are not proficient in math as they're going to the high school. We've got 70% of our freshmen that didn't pass the 8th grade math test. And so that's something that we had to have a discussion about, and I needed to hear from them what they thought the rationale was for those scores. Go ahead.
You might want to look into some of the brain research on what happens at that age in the brain.
Well, yeah, middle school, it is something to consider, but you know, the thing is, we had Common Core. So those 6th graders in 2013, we were transitioning to Common Core. We adopted a Common Core textbook. We decided midstream 2013 we were going to drop Common Core because it was not a good thing, and we went back to OCCT, back to past skills. Yeah. And so we changed and moved our shift again. And the things that I'm going to share with you, they're not excuses. They're they're facts about some of the things that took place over time. One of the things that we know in 2014 that for the first time 8th graders did not have to take the math test if they were in Algebra 1 or Geometry. So we lost all those advanced scores. If 7th or 8th graders took the PSAT and made a a certain score, a certain cut score, they weren't required to take the test at all. So we missed a lot of kids along the way from 2013 to 2015 who were off the radar altogether. These were our kids who normally scored advanced, but because we had these laws in place, we had 8th graders who were not taking the test anymore at all because they had scored proficient on the PSAT, or we had kids that were taking Algebra 1 and Geometry and didn't have to take the 8th grade math test. And so when you look at that over time, that could be one explanation. For example, at Longfellow, in 6th grade, they had a math teacher quit in the middle of the year, and it takes about probably a good, Amber works hard, but it still takes a long time to find another math teacher and get that math teacher in the classroom. And so following Longfellow students in 7th grade, same thing. They had a teacher mid-year, left. And then in 8th grade, they had a brand new teacher. So, the teacher attrition, I certainly think that's something that could be playing a role in this process. I think that we no longer have a modified assessment. If you look at the special education numbers, as far as the number that passed in 2013 to 2015, because we no longer offer this modified assessment, we have a lot of kids that are taking the regular assessment that probably since 3rd grade, they've taken a modified assessment, and all of a sudden, we're now throwing them into this regular assessment, and they don't have the prerequisite skills in order to meet the criteria of that test. And so, we can talk about the facts all day long and all the things that happen, but what we've got to do is we've got to move forward. And I'm going to share with you in the presentation some of the things that we're going to do to work on that. In reading, we weren't too far off from the state averages in reading. We are excited, as Mr. Rader talked to you about the RSA process. We will be getting our first RSAers, is what I call them, next year in the 6th grade. And what I'm most excited about is that for the first time, we're going to have students that have had interventions since 3rd grade. As they've moved on up, they haven't fell through the cracks. They've been watching them, they've been intervening, really been working with that group. And so what I'm most excited about is, I know as a middle school principal, you never had a lot of parents call you when they scored unsat in 6th grade and 7th grade, but when 8th grade came along and we had that driver's test that associated with the reading scores, all of a sudden the parents calling saying, hey, why didn't my kid pass that reading test? And as a principal, when you would go look back at that, ever since 3rd grade they had scored unsat, and that was okay. We just moved on and moved forward. And so what's really nice about this RSA process is I'm excited about these upcoming 6th graders as far as them having the interventions and all the supports in place as we move forward. And we'll talk a little bit about our plan with them as well. Any questions on that slide? Writing, the writing test did not count last year. It was considered not valid, but we did get scores from that, and we had 46% passage in 5th grade and 56% passage in 8th grade, and obviously those scores aren't great, and it was invalid, but I wanted to share those with you nonetheless.
That does include a school that we got no test results for because of the confusion in the way the test was rolled out at the last minute, so that's a whole other story.
So if we look at high school percent proficient, I'll let you guys look at that a little bit. Let you study the state averages to our district averages. One of our biggest concerns obviously was in Algebra 2. We went from 64% to 72% to 46%. There are people guessing all over the state of Oklahoma what the anomaly is with our Algebra 2 score, because all of a sudden the state average is 48% and we scored a 46%. One of the things that you have to think about when we think about students being intrinsically motivated to take end of instruction test, just like 8th graders are very intrigued by passing their 8th grade reading test because that's what's dependent upon them getting their driver's license. We have a lot of students who take the Algebra 2 end of instruction test and they don't need that test in order to graduate. Remember, you have to pass 4 of 7. So if they've met their 4 of 7, they may take this test and go, I'm going to just slough it off because it's not something that I'm going to need in order to graduate. So that's something that we could look at there. Biology, that is something we are also working on. We were 39% passage. What we're finding out is that students just aren't developmentally ready for biology when they get into high school. The 8th grade science standards cover very little of life science. They cover more of the physical properties and all of those other things that really don't tie into biology. So what we've done is we've created a life science course, And we've identified those students who scored unsat and limited knowledge in 8th grade science, and we have placed them in a life science course where we can really teach them the foundation, teach them vocabulary, and front load some information before they get into Biology 1. There's been lots of discussion about not even offering Biology 1 as a freshman and waiting for the sophomore year when students are a little more developmentally ready. Geometry strong, English 2, English 3, and U.S. history, you can see those there. We didn't have a score in 2004 for U.S. history. When we talk about changes in state assessment, we know our assessments don't measure the full complexity of what students should know. We have no modified assessment anymore. The State Department reports that the tests have an increase in depth of knowledge. Obviously, we want a more comprehensive picture of learning, the STAR assessment, and other things that we can look at. And one of the things that's coming up this year, we're adding 2 new online tests, science and social studies. And so with the demand of more online testing, we're really having to look at our availability of computers. And so when we develop our test schedules, we're not necessarily developing our test schedules based on what's really best for kids, but now we're having to really look at the number of computers and technology we have available so that we can accommodate all of our students. Advanced placement courses, very encouraged by the increase in enrollment. I think our National Math and Science Institute grant probably really helped increase our numbers. We went from 2013 to 147 to, in 2015, 696, which is really impressive.
And Doug,
go ahead.
One question I get a lot from frustrated parents is that we don't have any criteria to get into AP classes, and it really frustrates a lot of parents out there. What's your
Well,
thoughts?
with the National Math Science Institute grant, what we've done is we've really opened up those advanced placement courses to any students who want to take them. And what we're really trying to do is, obviously, in the 3-week period when school first starts, 6-week period, when we start identifying students who aren't doing well and aren't meeting the standards of an AP course, that's when a counselor typically calls them in, or a teacher recommends that they step down and maybe go back to a lower level course.
Right.
But we always try to encourage all students to give it a shot. And it's amazing sometimes there are a lot of students that they're intrinsically motivated by their peers and want to perform to the level of their peers. And so a lot of times you'll see a lot of kids that typically perform pretty average step up and really get an education and get some opportunities that they never had.
Well, and that's the flip side of that is the kid at the top may get watered down a little bit.
That,
it helps the kid down here, but what about the kid at the top? That's what I hear.
Yeah,
and I mean, I hear it from lots.
We hear that a lot. And and the other thing that you think about too is that typically our students who are scoring higher and are more advanced students typically are intrinsically motivated and want to learn. And sometimes we get students in those classes that are misbehaving, not doing what they need to. It becomes a classroom management issue. And so really what we do is we count on the teachers to make sure that they're letting the counselors know, letting administrators know that we have some students in there that aren't appropriately placed. And, really by this time even, probably the 6-week period, if we have students who, do not have a C or higher, we probably need to be having a conversation with the student and the parent and the counselor to say, this probably isn't the most appropriate course for your child.
Do you get much feedback from your teachers on what they would prefer?
I'm sure feedback from the teachers would be they would like to have those students that are probably intrinsically motivated and aren't a challenge to teach. But this is the thing.
Shouldn't that be what an AP class is, though?
It should be, but I will say this. No matter if we have a student that's up here or down here, we have to meet the needs of all students. And I think sometimes the assumption is if we have an advanced student that they don't need best practices, they don't need feedback. It's just like a special education student. We need to make sure we're meeting the needs of all of our kiddos. And sometimes with some of those kiddos that maybe aren't up here, but maybe we can get them up there, we have, I think, the obligation to try to get them up here.
But I keep hearing us go back to the special the special needs. But
Right.
once again, when you have the child that's up here, it's kind of like, well, they're here, but we're stopping.
Yeah.
And that's, I can tell you've had those same conversations.
Yeah, we have had those conversations.
What would be the alternative? What system would there be to put in place is to say, okay, this is when you qualify, this is when you don't.
Well, at the middle school level, at one time, in order for students to be in enriched classes, a student had to score advanced on their OCCT. That was the criteria. And then as time moved forward and, leadership changed, we had different philosophies on that. And so we moved from necessarily saying that we're only going to take the students who scored advanced and above to saying, come one, come all. And giving students those opportunities to
I think there should be a middle ground, my personal,
there really should, and I think
either extreme's not correct.
I do, and I think it goes back to the teacher being very proactive in communicating with the parent, the student, and the counselor to say, I don't think this is the right course for you. And, I know, Mr. Holton teaches a lot of advanced courses, and, he probably starts off with a healthy, I don't know what your numbers start off at, but 86, and where are they now? 28. So we do have those students that start off there, give them the benefit of the doubt. Some of them are going to make it, some of them aren't. And then we end up having to transition some out because they don't have those prerequisite skills and that advanced knowledge to be able to satisfactorily be in the class.
Can I put Matt on the spot and ask if
Yes,
you would prefer
sure.
criteria at the start, or do you kind of like the way the system's working?
Well, I think most every AP teacher believes any kid that wants to be successful in AP can do it.
Sure.
And it is that motivation and it is that expectation being set at the beginning, before they even begin the course, that this is what an AP level course is, and providing the resources to those kids to meet the need. And that is where AP teachers are. Nobody says that this kid can't do it because of whatever background.
Right.
This is the expectation, and here's what I can do to help you to get to this level. But it does fall ultimately on the kid to decide that, yeah, I want to meet that expectation.
So you're okay with the system as is for the most part?
I'm okay with kids who want to be in AP
Right.
having the opportunity to take AP.
Okay, good.
I think also the difference between like enrichment at a middle school level versus an AP class is those teachers are really responsible for taking enriched kids and pushing them further, whereas AP really is an elective course, people that are trying to get prepared for college or try to push themselves a little further.
Teachers
And
receive
there's-
specialized training.
Right, so it's different in that way, and kind of kids can decide, hey, I think that I can handle this, and then see how it goes, as opposed to enrichment where it's really made to push them and get
Right.
them.
I think the data, when we look at the data on our pass rate for AP placement, our students who are scoring 3, 4s, and 5s, which is where we want them to be, we can see that we've had an increase in the number tested. We had 400 kids that we tested in 2015, and 35% of those scored a 3, 4, or 5. And if you look at 2014, we had 31% and fewer students tested. So I think it is giving us some opportunity, just as Mr. Holton said, there are some kids that are intrinsically motivated to step up. They want to take the challenge. They want to, compete against their peers and do very well. And then we have our concurrent enrollment numbers as far as the number of hours taken, and we can see that with our robust concurrent schedule, we have more students taking college hours from 2013 to 2015. The high school students spoke about that and all the opportunities it has provided, $30,000 worth of education free if they take advantage of that at the high school. So very encouraged by those numbers.
Can I just say that's like one of my favorite things that the high school is doing now, is that concurrent enrollment. I don't remember that being in place when I was in high school.
Wouldn't that have been an opportunity?
It is just, I come from a really low income background, and it would have been just absolutely phenomenal. So I think that's great.
Very good. If we look at ACT scores, in 2015, the state average was 20.7, and we were 20.1. In math, if we just look at math alone, district, we were 19.8. ACT average in the state was 20.1. And in English, we were 19.7, and the state was 20.1. One of the things that we have to report each year are our college remediation rates. And so we had 27.9 of our freshmen in college remediation for math. And so that's certainly alarming, and knowing that we have that many students having to take a 0-level credit course their freshman year in college because they don't have the skills they need in order to go into college algebra. And then in English, we only had 8% of our incoming freshmen needing extra supports as they were entering into college. Yes.
Do you know what the state averages were for those remediation?
I might have those in my full. If not, I'll get them for you and let you look at them to let you know what they were statewide. I'll have to see if I've got that. I know we've got it somewhere. I didn't include it in this slide report.
I had a quick question. It's actually back a little bit, but because I just didn't get a quick enough draw.
Sure.
You said that you don't have OMAP tests for this level, but just like in the elementary level, there are still some accommodations made?
There are accommodations made. They can have the test read to them. They can have a test in a small group setting. They can take breaks. They can have accommodations. They just can't have modifications.
So similar to
correct, and that's definitely had an impact on our scores. Enid Public School Student College Ready, I thought this was really good. This was from ACT, and this was based on the ACT results. We always ask ourselves, are our students college ready when they get out of high school? And so basically ACT broke this down and let us know that we had 60% of our kids that were college ready in English. In college algebra, we had 26%, college social science, 45%. So you can kind of see the rundown there. And then we had 17% of all students of meeting all 4 requirements as far as what ACT would consider being college ready.
And what's the other column?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That was the state average. So Enid is the dark blue, and the state average is the light blue. So, for example, in Enid, 60% at Enid Public Schools to the 64% statewide. So you can see there's some discrepancies there, but we're also meeting the state averages in other areas. Just thought that was kind of interesting information to look at.
When you say state average, though, is that schools our size, or is that all schools?
Well, that would be all schools. And depending upon how a district, handles their ACT process, a lot of districts encourage just their top elite to take the ACT, and some districts you encourage all your seniors to take the ACT. So that would be all schools. Based on what ACCT gauges them being college and career ready.
Is that terrible?
Yeah.
Or am I crazy?
I think it's not, I'm not thinking it's where we need to be either. I would say we need to be at 70% or above in all of those areas, and as a state, we're struggling.
I would be interested to see comparisons with other states.
Where we're at.
Do you know what the national average is?
I don't know what the national average is. This data was from the state level, and I probably could gather that as well and let you look at that.
How difficult would it be to gather this data compared to our peer districts?
It's all able to be reported. We could look at all of that. That's public information.
Because you don't have enough on your plate already. But
no, we really could see how we're doing in comparison to other 6A schools. And that'd probably be the best comparison for us, rather than looking probably at the rural districts, would be to look at the other 6A schools and how we're performing. But this here is Enid's data compared to state average. So, yeah.
I've got a real quick question on this. So we talked the 22%. What's the percentage of EPS students that actually move on to 4-year universities?
We do not collect or have that data. Pretty much they're followed the freshman year. But after that, we do not have any data that we can look at to determine how many are completing from Enid Public Schools. That's not data that we collect at the state level.
I gotcha. Seems like that'd be an interesting, if you're talking about establishing a metric and a goal and something to build a program around, you would want to know, does college ready mean, did they go to college period? That means community, that means 4-year university, whatever. Right. Or does it mean 4-year university? But something tells me that it's probably not a percentage much bigger than 22% of EPS students that are moving on to 4-year universities. That's what I would guess.
One of the things that's going to change our data a lot, we are offering the ACT to all juniors. This will be the first time that we do that, and really the goal is that we're trying to replace some of our end of instruction assessments that we give and just go to the ACT. That's the shift we're looking at going as a state. And so we'll be giving the ACT to all juniors this year, and so that's really going to skew our percentages as well, because now instead of taking that population that's really saying, oh, I want to go to college and I want to take the ACT, now we're really saying we're going to test all of you whether you want to go to college or not. So that's going to skew our ACT results a little bit as well.
So
as we move
these
forward.
scores are kids that want to go to college, and of those kids, the 20% is the amount they can.
Yes. based on the
That's depressing.
Well, and this is the thing, though. That is based on students filling out the questionnaire and the ACT saying that they're going to college. So that data, you kind of got to take that with a grain of salt based on whether or not they actually follow through with going to college. Sorry. Graduation rate, we have an 83% graduation rate. We remain constant there. The state average is 82.7. Some of the things that we're doing at the local level is making sure that we're following up with kids as they drop. We had several kids at the beginning of this year that we dropped, and actually in going back and looking, sometimes we didn't follow up with a lot of those kiddos and those parents, and so we're doing a lot better job if someone falls off the radar that we're trying to find out why it is they fell off the radar. And as a reminder, our graduation rate is a cohort rate starting in 9th grade, so it tracks our students all the way from 9th grade to 12th grade. And so anybody that drops along the way falls into this 83%. And so we're trying to do a better job following up with those kids who kind of fall off the radar. We've talked to our district attorney, got a meeting set up to kind of talk about what can we do for those students who just stopped coming and how can we hold them accountable to get them back in school if they're under 18. So we're working on that. Randy, do you want to cover the report card?
Yes. This is our A to F report card. I'm going to move the microphone over there. Oh, sorry. Yeah. You can see on the right-hand side, our 3 priority designated schools made a positive impact. Coolidge and Garfield had substantial growth. Longfellow did have growth. Schools with an increase in the report card were Glenwood, Monroe, and Prairie View. And in schools with the largest increase were Garfield. They went up 19 points. Prairie View had a 12-point increase, and Coolidge had a 12-point increase. And so,
I know everybody has strong opinions about this, but to have that much growth at Garfield just boggles my mind. No matter what you think, that really they're assessing how far these students are coming, and that's just amazing.
well, there are, I mean, regardless of how you feel about it, exactly right. There are things that we can draw from this information. I mean, there is definitely a focus at that school and Coolidge as well, and I'd even say Prairie View. I mean, you know, those teachers had a renewed focus last year, and so you can put stock in it or not, but sometimes it is a motivator to become more focused.
And as much as I'd like to only talk about the positive, though, what happens at a school like Eisenhower that drops 20 points?
Probably a little bit of a lack of focus. One of the things we do know is, you know, teachers make a difference, and I would say in one of our testing grades there, we had a teacher that was a little bit weaker, and when you're testing a small percentage of students, you know, small numbers can either help you or hurt you. I mean, if you have one class that doesn't do as well, that can really hurt you. But I can promise you their focus will be back this year and is back this year. And so
I just looked
to me,
at
it's all about.
Prairie View, and they went from a C to an A. I mean, that's awesome. So.
You're talking about small numbers skewing results. That obviously isn't the case at Emerson.
Say that again.
You said Eisenhower, a factor that could play into it is small numbers. Well, that's not the case at Emerson. Mm-hmm. I really have a hard time buying lack of focus as a driving factor in that big of a drop.
Well, and you do expect to see, like...
I will tell you, I mean, in my opinion, it is about teachers focusing on the right things. I mean, there's a lot of things that you can get sidetracked in a school, and it can be from different opinions about what's important for essential standards and, you know, a new teacher not knowing what to focus on, or a veteran teacher losing focus of some of the things that are fundamental. I mean, so...
But for a drop that large, we're not talking about one or two
no,
teachers.
You're not.
This is a...
But what
I
you
agree.
just said about not knowing what to focus on, that's more training, attrition, turnover. That's not focus. I'm not saying focus is completely out of it. There is some part of that maybe there's a slight lack of focus, but I believe it's misleading to say that it's focus when your underlying causes are like what you said: turnover, training, new teachers, those types of things. Those are what's driving those numbers.
I think what's discouraging.
I think I'm not disagreeing with you. I think part of that is just what our definition of focus would be. I mean, I think that's one of the things that we are trying to establish as a district in having the pacing guides and those different things like that, is that some of those things that we think to be fundamental don't get lost in the shuffle. And that's what happens many times. And so that's what I'm referring to as focus. And there are certain fundamental things that even experts in a field would disagree on.
Across the board, like our demographic is changing, and I know that affects a lot of this for our middle schools, but, and I think it's great that Longfellow made a gain, even though it was a small one. They're drawing from schools that typically have a low score according to this, and but the thing that's discouraging is to see 2 of our schools that were stronger go down as substantially as they did.
And I think some of the things to look at too sometimes is looking at your feeders, especially when you start looking at the secondary schools and you look at your middle schools and you go, okay, where did the feeders going into Waller, how did they score on the report card the year prior, and being able to kind of gauge that information and kind of go, okay, where's the disconnect? Do we have students who are, schools that are doing well in elementary, and then when they move into their feeder middle school, what are the issues? Well, we know that there's a transition, and that's not an excuse. That's just a hard transition. You're moving from having a homeroom teacher to now you're having 7 different teachers, and they all have 7 different expectations, and there's a lot of accountability and responsibility that comes with that. And so, sometimes that can play into it. But we know that the report card calculates 3 different things. If a student scores, it's all math and reading based, we know that if they score at advanced or proficient, they get a point. We know that in growth, if they move from one proficiency level to the next, so if they move from unsat to limited knowledge, you get a point on a kiddo. And then you get that growth piece, and that's a huge piece. And that growth piece basically is where, for example, maybe in 6th grade reading in the state, there was the average Oklahoma Performance Index score was a 37. So if any students who had a 37 point increase, you get a point on that kiddo. So some kids are counted 2 or 3 times. And so the best information that we can take from this report card is it identifies our bottom 25% in math and reading. And it's really working with those kids and trying to get them where they need to be. So we really gather, I would say if we gather any good things from this, we gather that we have a group of bottom 25% that we really need to work with because they're really behind on prerequisite skills. They have gaps. And I think some of the things some of the unknowns sometimes for us is we don't know how many days kids have missed and how much instruction they've missed. There's a lot of different factors, but I am very proud to say that all schools, with the exception of Enid High, got all 10 of their bonus points. And bonus points are based on attendance, 94% or above. It's based on your advanced coursework, not having dropouts. And so when you think about that, if we didn't get those bonus points at some of those sites, to me, that's not really a reflection of how those schools are performing. But you get that 10 points above based off of those bonus points.
But while you're there,
my
biggest concern is I look at this, there are 15 campuses represented. 8 of those campuses had a D+ or lower. 9 of the 15 declined instead of increasing. And so as a district, it just is troubling to me that we're not, and then you just told me that every school got bonus points, so what would it look like without them?
Yeah.
I mean, how bad would it be? And I'm troubled that, I understand that everybody hates the grading system, but I think that probably what it is the schools that look bad hate it, and the schools that look good love it. And so we
absolutely.
Hate it here
we do.
Yeah,
and I don't think that's a current reflection of where we're at. I mean, I think the data that Mr. Rader presented on our growth in STAR and how it was projected at the secondary level on how our students were doing. I mean, I think there are a lot of things, and Amber always says it. Data is one piece of the story, and you have to tell your story and what we're doing. And I will tell you, in northwestern Oklahoma, and Amber could attest to this, we have very high teacher attrition rates. It's like we take 2 steps forward, we build and support these teachers up and get them where they need to be, and then they leave. And then we also...
I don't believe we're the only district.
We're not, but and I think the other... true. And I think the other thing is that we have to take the teachers that we have who may have limited experiences and make sure that we're supporting them and building them up to what they need to be. And I think the thing is, and I'll touch on it a little bit, is I think the strategic planning process that we have is really going to put some things in place that provide us
consistency, systematic processes to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all of our students, and we're giving all students equitable access to the things they need in order to be successful. So I'm hopeful, and I've got, at least 20 years left in the business. I've got to be optimistic and say we're going to make some real strides in.
I want to hear your optimism. I really do, but it's still,
yeah,
it's still troubling
yeah.
because even the 3 schools that we look at that made great strides, 2 of them are still in the 60s.
Yeah.
And so it's like, yeah, there's great strides, but man, they're just so far to go.
They are.
Could I ask one question here, Larry? And this is a rhetorical question, but isn't there a significant statistical correlation between the schools in Enid that score D or lower and the numbers of students that are on free and reduced lunch?
Yes, we do have, Mr. Rader and I were looking at that, and we have the data on our economically disadvantaged students. Our economically disadvantaged students are scoring about 30% lower than their peers. And at Longfellow, we're 98%. Emerson, we're 75%. Waller, hasn't been at 52%. I mean, the demographics are changing.
But that's not an excuse, though. That's a challenge.
Absolutely. It is not an excuse. And I think that's what I'm talking about through the strategic planning and intervention process is we're really going to try to get those kids where they are and take them to where they need to be. And so that's really been our focus.
So because we are system, do you all actually have goals where you take these 2015 scores and say in 2016 we want them to be here? Or do you just blow this system off because we hate it?
Basically what we do when we get the report card is we look at the data, and what we do is they identify the 3 strengths and 3 weaknesses in every area, 6th through 8th grade math, 3rd through 5th grade math. We're taking and identifying the 3 strengths and the 3 weaknesses. And what we're doing from there is we're developing SMART goals. So they're specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. And teachers are reviewing those. We're reviewing those with administrators. And we're setting goals to increase our performance. And we have a lot of things, and I'm going to talk about some of the things that we're doing that is just part of the strategic plan alone that is working on some of these issues. Principals are keeping track of their attendance rates. They're being very conscientious to make sure that we're getting kids in school. High school's working very hard on making sure we're monitoring our dropout rates. And I think the thing is we have to do a better job of intervening when kids aren't doing well. We can't wait until the 9-week period and go, we've got a kid who's struggling. We've got to formatively assess kids every single day to know where they are and know where we need to move forward as far as giving them feedback and providing them more instruction that's more focused and targeted. So we're definitely working on, so we don't take this information lightly and just go, Hofmeister said this is a flawed system. We definitely take a lot of this information and use it to improve.
Well, I think the other part that is, and this is not an excuse, it's just the fact that we're a big school district. I mean, it takes time to put the systems in place that provide the support to everyone, and that includes teachers. If I was at Freedom High School where I went to school, if I wanted to change the math department, I went and talked to Miss Russell and said, do this, and that's what she's going to do. I mean, here we have to pull those teachers out of class. We have to put a substitute in there. We have to do the aligning of the curriculum, and all of that takes time, and that goes back to what I said about building the foundation so we can have long-term wins versus, there's some things we could do to change those scores immediately. But time, I don't think, would support those. And if we don't put those supports in place systematically, we're going to continually just be chasing the same issues over and over and over. And so that's what we're doing through the strategic plan, through the professional development, through the curriculum and instruction, and aligning all of this stuff. The unfortunate part about, and this is not an excuse, it's just when you're in a bigger school system like this, it takes time, and you multiply that by all the teachers you have, and it just takes time, and there's nobody. I want it to happen yesterday. I really do.
Let me say though, that I'll only speak for me, but when I ask you these questions, I'm not trying to assess blame or anything like that, because I will tell you that I take a great deal of pride in our system. I don't see another school putting out some national merit scholars that we're putting out and things like that. And so when I see these, I struggle. And Colin can sit here and talk to you about all these stuff because he's analytical and he's smart. Well, I'm just an average Joe. So all I see is pluses and minuses.
Right.
But that's also, though, what our constituency out there sees. And I'm just being honest. I'm a competitive person, and it aggravates us too. I mean, go to work every day and hear how much better Chisholm is, and you know all that, but yet they've not produced a National Merit Scholar in the last several years, and you know, and we were the first one to have a blue room in school, but yet, you know, and I just
and I agree. I mean, and you know, I'm a proud graduate of Freedom High School. Graduated with 14. But you know, 2 years ago they scored a 104 on this A to F system. I would put my kids in Enid High School and the opportunities that they have through the AP classes and all of that stuff. And I'm not dogging Freedom High School, so if any of my fellow graduates are listening, but that's the kind of thing I'm saying. It just, we have different obstacles, and so we're gonna go through those obstacles, and we're gonna come out better on the other side.
And another big piece of the pie is another challenge is our huge demographic of English language learners. That's something we haven't really talked about, but that is a huge piece of this, is accommodating those kids.
Well, and I think when you look at the STAR data, and when I do dig into the STAR data, and we could talk about this all day, some of the places we get the biggest growth are our student, Garfield and Coolidge, and you know, Jane is working really hard to develop a climate at that school that teachers want to stay there for more than 2 or 3 years, and that's going to build consistency, and that's going to build some of the systems in place that help support them. So,
Randy, I don't mean to harp on it, but I do have a question. Those that dropped specifically drastically, but even the ones that dropped a little, have those principals in those buildings actually looked at, and are they able to kind of pinpoint where they think they've gone wrong? I mean, I don't want an excuse, and I don't need specific, but you know, I mean, I know there's been so much talk about just shoving it all to the side, but I mean, some of those changes they didn't happen overnight.
Right, and we have had conversations about it, and I think principals know what they've done, and
they
so,
receive a breakdown, don't they, of what they scored in each area, so they'll have an idea of
right
where their score decreased and increased.
Right, and we can get on the state reporting site, and we can run lots of different reports to divide out information in a lot of different ways, and so we have looked at that information, and again, we're trying to build in the systems that will help us.
How close are we to getting rid of this? I mean, you know, we're talking about this is an invalid test, and some of the things they give you credit for or take away on aren't really measuring what we're trying to measure. So have you heard anything in the legislature this year?
I think we're closer now than we ever have been toward moving toward the ACT, replacing the EOIs, and I see that as kind of the beginning stages of changing or revising or deleting this. And I would not be surprised.
When we know it's flawed and know a lot of things that are wrong with it, seems like we're giving an awful lot of credence to it.
Right, and I mean, I think Ernie makes a perfect point in the fact that if we didn't have the bonus points, where would we be with a lot? And bonus is attendance in an elementary school. I mean, I'm glad to have the 10 extra points because this is what's published, but really, I'd rather see a higher pass rate than I would getting 10 bonus points for kids being at school or not.
And I think the sad thing is for our constituents, I think you're right. I think for them to see these published reports, or for someone to come in from Vance Air Force Base and go, you know, wanting to look at our schools and see how we're doing, and if this is what they're gauging to make their decisions, that's just very disappointing. You know, but
can parents and community members?
The companies thinking about moving their headquarters here, they look at these things. So
Can parents and community members access the breakdown of the school? Because I
it's
think even
all on the State Department website.
Okay, that's what I thought. Because if you could see how it breaks down, I mean, there is valuable information in it, but if you can see more than a grade, it makes it more. I don't know.
Yes. A lot of people won't delve into it that far. They'll just look at one real estate rating score and call it good. So. And Willa Joe makes a good point. You know, it seems like we're putting a lot of credence into a significantly flawed system, but on the other hand, that doesn't mean that you can negate it and just sweep it under the rug and say it doesn't mean anything. It does mean something, and what it means is that we've got a dose of reality here that we've got to take seriously, and we've got to focus on what we can do to improve, which is the next part of the presentation. And board members, see how I just transitioned into the moving us along? Yeah.
Moving forward. Okay, so let's talk about.
Hang on.
Okay.
Board members, Mark Ray, a guy that does all the behind-the-scenes stuff and the recording, wanted me to remind you to turn your microphone on when you speak, because otherwise the recording cannot pick up your questions or your comments. Go ahead,
Okay,
Mr.
so
Stafford.
let's talk about the most important things, and those are the things that we're doing to improve based on our current reality and all the things that we presented to you. So the first thing Rennie's going to talk to you guys about is Alpha Plus.
We do have 4 of our lower performing schools working with Alpha Plus. There are some definite good things about this. The process that it puts us through, and I'll again, maybe at my own detriment, use the word focus. It has had teachers focus on the right things. And what I mean by that is, believe it or not, we have teachers sometimes, if they're not focused, that teach standards that aren't within their realm. And so you can't really teach something until you have mastery for everything. And that comes down to even knowing to what place value do you teach in what grade level. And it's lined out. And so this has allowed us to have those conversations and had teachers have those more focused conversations about what they really are responsible for, what kids need to know versus what is nice to know. And so we have a baseline. You can see that. The first number in each category is the baseline, the first formative assessment that they took, the number of kids that passed those assessments, and then the running total where they're at now. You can see all of our schools have had good growth from where they started. And so Alpha Plus has allowed us to do some real good things with focus. And that goes back to the formative assessments. Formative assessments are given at the end of each unit to know where kids are at so that you know whether or not you need to reteach and reevaluate.
Every one of those schools went up on the grade card.
They did, right, absolutely. And some of the things they were doing already, but Alpha Plus, like I said, has provided some additional tools.
Yep. So just to clarify there, Ernie, this data that you're looking on A through F is from last year. So
Right.
this data you're looking
this
at
is
it.
current. Okay.
Yeah, this is current, I'm sorry, yes.
Alpha Plus data is from this year.
Yes. And that's one of the things we have in place. So next slide, Dave. This just shows the number of assessments that are given, the formative assessments that go along with the pacing guide. This just shows a number that each school is averaging.
All right, so kind of what we've alluded to is that the strategic plan is really impacting improvement, and it's giving us some opportunities to align some things and have more consistent practices. We are aligning our curriculum. You know, pretty much, it's kind of like Mr. Rader said, the nice to know versus the need to know. And we have teachers sometimes that particularly like a certain lesson or a certain unit that's fun because there's lots of things to do with it, but really it doesn't have a whole lot to do with what students are being assessed on. And so for us to be able to align curriculum and create pacing guides and identify what standards are most important for students to learn through the given year that they're in school, also thinking about how that's going to help them as they move on to the next grade. Professional development needs focus. The strategic planning group has done a great job not only identifying what teachers are saying they need, but also in ways in which teachers learn best. Like, for example, we're doing death by PowerPoint right now, and we know that adults don't learn best that way, but it's the best way we have to share the information with you. So we have had National Education come in and do ELL training. We have other ELL training that we're providing. We have a lot of teachers that want to know more about how to use technology in the classroom and engage learners. We're learning a lot of information from our professional development needs focus. Identifying and narrowing assessments, the formative assessments, that's the best way to gauge what students are learning. Basically, after they have a lesson, how do we know they've mastered that concept? And if they haven't mastered that concept, we can't move on because we're just creating a snowball effect. And so what we're doing is we're really trying to identify, all right, if a student didn't get standard 3.2, addition and subtraction, then we have to go back and reteach. We can't just move on. And that's what we were doing. A lot of times we were just moving on and saying they didn't get it, we're going to move on. Well, now we're saying to ourselves, we've got to reteach. We've got to make sure every kiddo gets it. And if they're not getting it in the classroom, then we have to find ways to build that into the school day. And so we're really trying to be laser targeted on what we need to provide students in order to get them where they need to be. research-based lesson planning. We talked about that a little bit. We are in professional learning communities, and that is not a meeting that teachers have once a week. That's a culture. That's basically where we're all in it to make sure that we're helping our students. We're looking at data. As Colin had mentioned, looking at that STAR data continuously and letting it guide our instruction. Response intervention, not only identifying those kids that need the most help, but also looking at those kids that need enrichment opportunities, making sure we're bringing in people from the community who support industry. We're bringing in Autry Technology Center, bringing in lots of people to provide enrichment opportunities. Character-based education, increased enrichment opportunities, looking at more science, technology, engineering, and math opportunities through grants. And one of the biggest things that we can do is support our new teachers. The EEA put together a great new teacher mentor program that the State Department actually wanted to use and model. So I think we're doing a great job really trying to support our teachers and really hoping to build capacity and have teachers want to stay in our district to feel like they're supported. So we're really focusing and working on that. And then, of course, working on effective communication strategies. So moving forward, things we're looking at is collective responsibility to make sure we're the students of our students. One of the things that's most important for us is that we know where our students are. We have to know where they are, and we have to take them where they need to be. And the thing is, we don't have to wait until they're in middle school. We know in third grade who those students are who struggle in reading. We know who those kids are in math that struggle in math. We don't have to wait 6 weeks in and go, oh, I think they're going to have a problem with math or reading. We know that in advance, and so we have to do a better job of making sure we're responding to these kids. When we have kids leave the 5th grade, the 6th grade teachers need to know as they're entering middle school, where are kids at? What is it that they need to know and what gaps do they have? Concentrating instruction, making sure that we're really focusing on what students need to learn, looking at assessments and, finding out that day what students understand and don't understand instead of waiting for a comprehensive test 2 weeks later and go, oh, 50% of the class didn't get slope intercept. Really being more focused on making sure we're remediating for students. And then making sure that we have certain access, making sure that our administrators are evaluating teacher effectiveness to, and that we're looking at that data to guide instruction, and we start looking at those students who are struggling. The one thing that we would like to say, and the thing that we're striving for with all of our improvement efforts and the strategic planning is we really want to be able to say it doesn't matter which teacher your child has at the school, if your child needs extra time and support to learn at high levels, we guarantee he or she will receive it. So we're really trying to focus in on making sure we're meeting the needs of all of our students. And so with the SMART goals, leadership meetings at all the sites, we're focusing in on the data and the assessments, and that's one piece. And we think about all the things that we can't measure on a test. We have all of the multicultural awareness programs at the high school in which, we're really trying to support those students. We had the TED Talk where we have, 10 students get up and speak about topics that were of importance. I mean, there are a lot of things that we're doing as a district that, test report cards can't measure. And so we offer students a lot of those opportunities. So that is our presentation. And like I said, we're looking at the alpha model as Mr. Rader talked about, there are a lot of good processes through that. So we're looking at ways in which we can do that district-wide as far as being able to provide essential standards, looking at standards by student, by skill. So we're really trying to build that culture so that we can get out of that rut we're in on our report cards.
Well, I do want to agree with, I think it's Colin that said it, that at some point I would like to see a comparison with peer schools so that it isn't comparing us to Freedom, who made a 104 on the drinker. Excuse me. You want me to repeat that? No.
Repeat the first part. And I do have that. I do have for secondary, for high schools, I do have a 6A ranking of the 6A schools on report cards, and it breaks it down by whether or not they got their bonus points. We're talking with Stillwater High School, we're talking with some other schools that have A's and finding out some of the things they are doing. But when you look at the economically disadvantaged rate of Stillwater versus Enid, you're really kind of comparing apples and oranges there as well. So, but there are some things that we can take away from what some of those other schools are doing, and we're listening. So we're definitely
Thank you.
in it to win.
This is so impressive, and I really like what you've done. I hope you will consider either publishing it or using it as a basis for your doctoral dissertation.
That's not gonna happen. I'm done.
Well done. I want to make three concluding comments. First off, the handout that you got on the slides, I would bring your attention to the last page, board members, and that is the strategic plan's impact on improvement and moving forward. Those two slides kind of summarize the fact that A, we are taking this information seriously, and B, what we hope to do about it and how we want to go about improving these results moving forward. Secondly, I want to reiterate what has already been stated, that even the state Office of School Support did recognize, actually this month, the improvements made at Coolidge, Garfield, and Longfellow in a state publication that they just sent out this month. And then lastly, this document that you have at your place that says Enid Public Schools District Immigrant/ELL Student Report. That is a very telling document and obviously plays into all these results. You've got 2011 in the green, 2012 in the red, and the purple is 13, the blue is 14, and then 15 is in green. So if you look at that, you've got the number of ELL students in the first column, the number of immigrant students, and those are not always the same. You got that in the second column, and then the percentage in the third column. So if you can see, just looking at that globally, that those numbers obviously have increased in our district, just like they have in a lot of districts across the state and across the nation, and that is a significant change in many districts and many states that are becoming an issue, even in districts that it has not been an issue in the past. And it is an educational issue, it is an instructional issue, it is a financial issue. So I'm not using that as an excuse, but I think we need to look at that as a shifting demographic change that is an important issue. I believe that's all we have on that particular topic. Would you like to take a...
So the superintendent's report is finished?
Yes, finally. Mercifully.
Would y'all like to take a 5-minute break before we proceed?
I need one. I need one.
We need to take a 5-minute break. Okay, let's do that.
Thank you.
Come on, Abernathy, get up here. Okay. Yeah, well, trust me, I'll second that. So, next item on the agenda is the consent items, and it's my understanding that we can take everything under Roman numeral 4, Section A as one vote. Would that be correct?
Move we approve.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Brings us to B. And Carl, I'll just let you lead us through those.
All right, the first item is general fund encumbrances for FY 2016, purchase orders 1610 through 1683. Recommend approval.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Oh,
Ernie, I can't hear who's making the motions and who's doing the seconds.
My mic was on. It's still on.
Who did
I did the first motion.
And about 3 of us second.
Yeah. And
Okay,
then
who seconded?
Willa Joe. Oh, which one? First?
The A.
This,
pick.
then for B.
Okay.
Willa Joe motion and I second.
And
No,
all
I'm
in
sorry,
favor
I
said
can't hear who's-
Aye.
aye. And there were none opposed. Brings us to item 2 now.
General fund change orders since October 13th. Purchase orders 1 through 1609, $554,834.18. Recommend approval.
Move approval.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Building fund encumbrances, purchase orders 41 through 45, $39,114.50. Recommend approval.
Move we approve. Second.
Did you get some names there, Carol?
I'm getting some.
Okay. Just make it up.
Amanda made the motion. Amanda made the motion.
Any, meeny, miny, mo.
Yep. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Municipal tax levy fund encumbrances, purchase orders 6 through 8, $6,740. Recommend approval.
Move approval.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
And activity fund purchase orders for donations and gifts, purchase orders 16 through 18, $2,393.30. Recommend approval.
Move approval.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I want to say you all have had the financial report and had an opportunity to review it. But Carl probably has a few things he'd like to point out.
I'll keep it to 3 minutes.
3 minutes or less.
Watch. Okay.
You left out the or less part.
Moving right along. Of the 59, almost $60 million that we estimate collecting, we've collected approximately $20 million in the general fund and encumbered $54.5 million. What I would like to say is that since July 1, our cash balance has consistently moved downward. This is very understandable for this time of the year. Prior to ad valorem tax collection time, which is in January through about March. Ernie, as a banker, understands that. It's when the banks pay the escrow accounts for taxes. It is also an underscore for the need for an adequate fund balance, as is the fact that we are facing some difficult financial times. Just last week, we heard that the state is collecting about 10% less than what was estimated. One quick comment, and then I will stop. And that is that if we do encounter a situation in which the state cannot meet its budget, which happened last to our district in the 2003 fiscal year, then the legislature cannot hold education harmless. It will cut all agencies the same percentage that it is short. So that is something for us to remember as we face the rest of this year and the coming fiscal year, looking at somewhere between a $611 million and a $1 billion shortfall in the state budget. So we need to be very careful about how we spend our fund balance.
Carl, you mentioned the drawdown that happens this time of year each year, but do you make comparisons from year to year? Is it a steeper decline this year?
No,
than
it
in
is
previous
not.
years?
I'm just saying that one of the reasons to keep that fund balance in place and make sure that it's adequate is that's what we live on from July until January. Because unlike your home paycheck, in which you get roughly the same amount each month, we get a huge percentage of our budget all in the months between January and March, and have to save from July through December enough to cover those expenses. I illustrate this in a school finance class by saying, well, I'll take a fourth of your salary and I'm going to pay it to you in a payment in January. How much of that do you need to have left in your bank account in July to make it back to January?
Well, first of all, is there a motion to approve the financial report?
Move we approve.
Second.
Okay, now is there discussion or more questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The school calendar.
Right. I'm gonna, I believe, Randy, are you leading this discussion, or both of you? Or? Okay. We did put a committee together, and Randy and Doug, did you sit in on that, or just Randy? Both of you did? Okay. And board members, you have at your place a draft calendar there, as well as a stapled definition of work and professional days there. And Randy's going to walk us through what happened in the committee process and then our administrative recommendation for approval.
We met with the EEA representatives, and Tori did some of that by virtual meeting just for calendar purposes, but we're able to share the information. One of the things that we did was we really defined what the work days versus professional days were. Tried to listen to the EEA on that and allow time to happen in the building, not overwhelm with a lot of new information as well. And then the thing that we really tried to do is lay those things out in the center of the calendar so you can really be definitive about what's going to take place on our professional development days. Those days are hugely important. We can't do the things we want to do with our strategic planning if we don't have those days. We're able to keep a full week at Thanksgiving. I've heard, I think in a week we'll realize that was a good decision this year, and I've heard from teachers and parents that they like that.
Are we the only district around here that's doing that?
Around here, probably. It's not uncommon to happen across the state. I know of several other places that do it. And then our Christmas break, you can see how that sets up. One of the changes we feel like is important to make is honoring Martin Luther King's Day on January 16th. Traditionally, that's been the students are out, but it's been a professional development day, but we feel like staff members, we need to just honor that holiday as well, and we're able to do that. Finishing up before Memorial Day, which I think is important. So this calendar would be our recommendation. If anybody has any questions, we'll be glad to try to answer those questions.
Move we approve.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Now that brings us to our board meetings, correct?
Yes. Go ahead, Carl.
The state law requires that we notify the county clerk by December 15th of the schedule of regular meetings for the coming calendar year. And now that the school calendar has been approved, this schedule of meetings ties to that school calendar. And for the first time in a couple of years, we know for certain that we're going to be avoiding the Meet Your Teacher evening that we've...
I was going to ask who finally saw it this year.
Well, it takes getting this calendar in place before we do the schedule of meetings. That's what's gotten us the last couple of years in a row. So I'm pleased to say that everything coordinates with basically corresponding dates. We did have to do a little shifting in August to get things in, and we did eliminate one of the planning sessions, which of course the board could decide to have a third one if we so desire. But recommend approval of this schedule of regular meetings, and of course with a short notice we can call special meetings anytime we want to.
Yeah, let me just point out 2 or 3 things here, board members. If you'll look at those dates right quick, you might just want to make a couple of notes here. February the 1st, 2016, it obviously is a planning session. That's 5:30 start instead of a 6 o'clock start. And then go down 2 more to March 7th. That actually is a week before the 3rd Monday, and that's because of spring break. So we moved that up a week. Then you go over to the right-hand side. You've got the planning meeting on August the 8th. And then we would have had the following Monday would have been our regular board meeting in August, but to avoid Meet the Teacher, we moved it back a week to the 22nd, because Meet the Teacher, you might want to make a note of this, will actually be on August the 15th next fall. And then November, item number 13, November the 14th is actually the second Monday, and that's because of Thanksgiving. So we would recommend approval of that, and upon approval, then Carl will get that down to the right place.
Move we approve.
Second. Any discussion?
Just noticing on the calendar, for next school year, students and professionals will have off Martin Luther King Day. But I noticed our first school board meeting for 2016 is on Martin Luther King Day. Was there any discussion about moving that to the second?
Wait a minute.
Monday as opposed to the...
January? You talking about January?
January 18th.
So January the.
Well, but you're looking at
January
together
18th.
years.
Oh, yeah.
That's
so
the new
different
calendar
years.
is for 17.
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah,
We haven't gotten to 2017.
No, but what I'm saying is, our first board meeting for next year, January 18th, is Martin Luther King Day.
Oh, this coming January?
Our current school calendar year.
Current school.
We are
Yes.
falling on Martin Luther King.
Right. And
Let me pull up the calendar.
we do.
It is
And this year, we're not taking it out of school.
professional development.
Right,
day,
we're
so
in
the
school that
employees
day.
will be-
Well, the
students are out,
teachers.
teachers
The
have
teacher-
professional
the
I think for camaraderie with our teachers, we should have it that day. To say we stand with them and we're working that day too.
Well, that's precisely why we didn't look at
Yeah.
changing it, because if they've got to work that day, we thought we might as well go ahead and have the.
Hey, don't laugh at me, I see you.
For next year, a year down the road, then we fix that, and we won't have that.
2007.
Everybody will get it off.
Correct.
Okay.
So in answer to your question, yes, we'll have the meeting that day. If everybody's agreeable.
So there's a little time wasted.
Okay, thank you.
Wow.
Wow.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Let's talk about drug testing.
All right, Doug is
All right.
going to summarize that for us.
Okay, so
You
our
have a
first-
handout there, board members.
Yes, first revision reading, you have the copy that has the strikeouts and the additions. The OSSBA attorney has looked over the proposed policy. Just to point out some of the significant changes, we changed extracurricular language to denote EPS-sponsored activities to broaden the scope of students that could be tested. We've made sure and kind of been consistent with the EPS-sponsored activity language. We did take out the possession piece of the mandatory random drug testing policy because possession of drugs carries a different consequence, a disciplinary consequence, and so we did take out possession in the language. Again, more EPS-sponsored language there in lieu of the OSSAA language. We also took out, we said that we would have hair follicle in lieu of urine sample. We talked about it would be available online, as well as there being conversation at parent meetings to discuss the new policy. We had talked about, instead of it being 12 times per year, we would test quarterly, and we didn't put a numerical number on that information. On page 3, we basically put
What
the...
he's,
sorry.
if you haven't pulled that up, that attachment up, board members, on your online agenda, that's what he's walking us through that.
Yes, just
To
like...
expedite things, I read through it thoroughly earlier.
I figured probably most of you had, but page 3 of that, basically we took out the procedure for urine analysis and added the hair follicle procedure. We have language in there regarding the nurse being responsible for that process. In confidentiality, we continue with that language with the nurse, being consistent with that. We took out some of the appeal process because it related to a urine specimen. We talked about, we just changed the language on non-appealable to not subject to appeal. Changed some language on nurse again. Some of the more important changes, we did say that if a student had a positive hair follicle finding for drug use, that at the discretion of the school district, a student may be requested to be administered a follow-up drug test, and that was approved for us to move forward with that. And of course, we would probably do that. We don't list a timeline, but we know that that has a residual 3-month that would be in their system, so we would probably do that following a 3-month finding. On second offense, we took the athletic activity director out of that equation. We also changed on the second offense, the student shall be ineligible from participation in all scrimmages, games, competitions, or performances for the remainder of the year rather than the 40 days or reducing it to the 20. We did say that we would reduce it to half a year if they attended counseling. And we totally took out the third offense, did not make that an option. You also have an exhibit that accompanies that policy.
That's the handout at your place.
Yes, and it is the actual consent form that the parent, or that the student and parent or guardian would complete. This would probably be done with all the enrollment process when we're working on getting the information for physicals and those type of things. But basically, it's consistent with the language that we have in our new policy regarding EPS-sponsored activities. We changed urine to hair follicle. We did add in there an extra component D that says at the discretion of the school district, a student with a positive result may be requested to be administered a follow-up drug test. And then on the second piece of that, so the student signs that first piece. And then on the second piece of that, we took out the possession language, consistent with the policy. And then on that third piece, we took out urine and added hair follicle. So we can approve that tonight if everybody is good with it, and if we need to.
Since this is an existing policy, it does not necessarily require 2 readings. It's just a revision to an existing policy. So legally, we can go ahead and approve it tonight if the board so desires. And if you don't, well, then we can bring it back for a second reading. And this would go in, upon board approval, this would go into effect second semester, correct?
Correct, and we would just need to really talk timelines on when we would want to contract with a company to do the testing and kind of decide exactly what our timeline would be on moving forward.
Ready for me, Ernie?
Yeah, well, we need a motion first before we discuss. Is there a motion to approve it?
I move we approve.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Colin?
Couple things. The refusal to submit. Where's the arbitrary 88 days come from? I don't. Why is that number 88?
Is that in the consent
It's at the
note?
very end of the policy. It says if they refuse after signing the contract, they're not eligible to compete for 88 school
Isn't
days.
that a semester? Yeah, that's a semester. That is an average semester duration there, the 88 days.
44 days in a quarter.
Mm-hmm.
88 school days?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So at that point, if they'd like to participate in an activity, they have to, for example, if they're wanting to play a sport, they are not going to play the first semester, but they'd like to, I don't know what sport's going to play 2 semesters, but
correct.
They'd like to do that, they have to fill all this stuff out again before they can do that. Okay.
And since I learned a new term tonight, this only deals with extracurricular, not what we learned earlier about co-curricular, correct? Okay.
Those,
I'm
yeah, the
not gonna test the
co-curricular
bowling
folks
team.
would not be tested.
The
But
skiing
that 88 days only comes into effect if they refuse the test.
That's correct.
Okay.
And Doug, do you know much about the panel as far as the drugs that are tested? Is it a broader panel than the urine?
It is, and I have the actual documentation that shows all the things that it tests.
Okay.
It's far
very
more
broad.
extensive than urine.
That was my assumption. I
It
don't
is.
need to know. Okay.
All right, so back to the 88 school days. Could we not, doesn't basketball roll into both semesters?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I think
So if they were randomly picked at the beginning of fall semester, they could become eligible to play beginning of second semester and skipping. So I'm not necessarily comfortable with putting in 88 days. I think we need to change that language. I'd almost be for the school year. If they sign the contract and then refuse to do it.
Colin, I have a question. To clarify, you're saying, so if they randomly are selected in August and they say, I'm not doing it, I'm going to wait my 88 days out, they could still play the sport of their choice in June?
If it was.
The time passes.
Potentially, yes. Because
I see what you're
basketball rolls into both semesters.
Right.
So if they were picked at the beginning of the year, they could potentially still be in basketball season, the sport they want to play. By the time their suspension's up, then they automatically go in.
My understanding, though, is that it's if they refuse to sign the contract, saying
No.
they'll be.
No, it's
If they
after
refuse,
signing the
no, they can
contract.
sign the contract, but if they refuse.
It's refusing once the contract, okay.
Right.
All right, I'm caught up.
They're refusing the test. If they get picked randomly, they refuse to take the test.
I tend to agree with Colin on that because, I mean, I think they shouldn't get back in the sport until they do agree to take the test.
Okay.
I mean, so if they're going to refuse the test, then they ought to be out for the year.
Until they take it.
Yeah, until they agree to take the test.
Because the chance that they'll get re-upped,
We can
That might
put
be an
that
option
in
for a
and then
short
have
time
OSSBA relook at it, and we can approve it next month.
We get, So the suggestion is to tweak that, language on that last one to incorporate deleting the 88 days and incorporating
Either that they are not eligible to compete for the entire school year, or until they agree to submit a test.
and test positive, I would say. Because what if
But what if they wait 3 months and they go, okay, it's out of my system, now I'm gonna.
But
You're
even
good
then,
with that.
but that's kind of what
That's
they've still got
kind
to
of
stay
what we're
clean for
wanting,
that
isn't
3
it?
months.
Yeah. Isn't that what we're after?
Yeah,
Is
that's
a
the point.
Yeah.
Drug-free kid.
If we clean them up, we're doing them a favor.
Right, that's true.
And
Now-
if you
Or
tell
maybe we
them-
should do both. Maybe we should say 88 days and a positive retest.
Negative.
Doesn't that catch it
Negative.
both ways?
Negative.
I mean, negative in that, yes.
Yeah.
My thought is if you put in there that they're ineligible for the entire year,
gonna
some of
give
those
up.
kids might go, all right,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
done.
that's
you
where-
know,
that's
and-
where I was headed
Yeah.
right
So
there.
They're
you
gonna
need
drug
to
it
give them
up.
something to
You
work
need
for.
to have some kind of incentive there because that is the goal after all, is to become drug-free. And if you truly have a kid that gets randomly selected that has a problem, maybe he gets incentive to wait his 88 days and get clean and get retested, and then he can perform again.
Or if you put the or in, then he just have to wait the 3 months till it's out of the system.
Yeah.
May not even be 88 days.
Yeah.
So do we want to incorporate both, or?
3 months.
3 months. I mean, to me, it'd be best for, if you refuse, you're either ineligible for the entire school year, or until you take a test and have a negative result.
Why couldn't we just put you're ineligible until you are tested, and then at that point, consequences will go at that point?
Yeah, it doesn't even have to have
Or
a
that-
days.
yeah.
If all of a sudden you agree to the test at any point in time, you can be eligible again if you pass the test.
If you don't, then the consequences of the days kick in.
Like that better, because again, even if you say you're ineligible for the whole year, some may say, okay, I'm done. But if you give them that, it's not a definite, you're out for the whole year, you can take it whenever you choose, but
And
you
they
have to
might say
take
they're
it.
done just knowing
They
they have
might.
to take a test. I
They
mean,
might.
But yeah,
They
let's
might.
just say you're ineligible to participate until you submit to the test because you've been randomly picked.
So pending consent and negative.
And negative?
And a negative result.
Yeah.
That, and I'm not quite done on the conversation.
It's okay.
Because here's the deal, though. If we,
Yeah.
I mean, there may be kids who just decide not to go out because they know they're going to
Yeah.
fail the test. I mean, so we're going to have that.
The second part that I want to talk about is the reasonable suspicion. That, just coming from a private sector, can be a very slippery slope on how and when that's administered. With that being said, if we were going to put in this that they can be subject to test under reasonable suspicion, we need to provide training to our staff to enable them to do that.
We'll have to review this policy with our coaches and staff.
And with, not just review the policy,
Mhm.
we're talking additional training to show them signs of under influence. And with that being said, I think we would be rushing into it to implement it second semester. I think we need to wait until next school year to implement.
I don't think necessarily, I mean, if a sponsor has reasonable suspicion, we have trained staff that is on campus to deal with those situations. We have campus police, we have campus counselors that can assess those situations.
The protocol is that when a teacher or a coach, anybody in the school system suspects that a student may be under the influence of anything, typically a call is made to the office, either the administrator or the nurse comes up to the classroom, accompanies the student down to the nurse's office. They do the pupil check, they check reflexes, they do all these assessments to determine whether or not.
But we're under the that's under the assumption that it's on campus. This could be traveling on a bus, going off to some activity out of state. I'm just telling you, knowing the legal issues that can come about under reasonable suspicion.
Being objective about it and not.
We need to be very careful in how we administer that and how we train our staff on that.
Because it could be perceived as they're targeting a kiddo based on, yeah.
What page is that on?
It's throughout. I think it's throughout.
2.
Maybe, but
Oh, there are several.
On reasonable suspicion, that's
I
on
got you.
page 2.
Okay.
And personally, I think that at the beginning of every school year, especially next year, if we were to say delay implementation and testing until next school year, it would be part of that back to school, teachers, staff coming in. It's that initial training, and then they get refresher training every year going into the school year.
I don't know, though, Colin, that we need to delay the whole thing for a year. We just need to be really cautious using that particular
And I didn't sit on.
method of targeting, or of testing.
But we don't even know the company we're going to be using yet, Ernie.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying we could still do the random, couldn't we, next semester without?
Potentially, but I still think that committing to a deadline of next year, not knowing a company we're going to be using, to me, it just seems a little bit rushed.
I didn't sit on the committee last year, but were there issues in the past with the past drug policy we had with reasonable suspicion? Did we have any? I mean, I didn't sit on the committee, so I'm not sure what feedback. Do you know, Mr. Rader, if there was any discussion on reasonable suspicion?
Turn your mic on there, Carl. I don't remember.
As I recall, I was with the district throughout the previous implementation of this policy. There was never a legal issue raised about reasonable suspicion. I don't recall that we tested anyone when there was any doubt. In other words, we did, but our administrators were darn sure that there was a problem. They were, about 99% sure that the person was under the influence before they used that as the criteria to go ahead and test someone. It didn't happen very often.
I don't remember any conversation in the committee about that ever being an issue.
So we definitely will just need to make sure that we're training them appropriately and giving them examples of if you're on site at an athletic event and you don't happen to be within the brick and mortar building, how do you handle a situation like that? And I mean, that's just something we're going to have to really discuss and talk to the administrators and coaches about.
I mean, if we don't provide training to staff on this, we're setting them up.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Creates a lot of subjectivity.
And obviously, we are living in a more litigious society anyways.
But they also can get a second opinion. Let's say that they did have reasonable suspicion. Let's say it was a coach or a band director or something. They also can get a second opinion from one of the school resource officers and say, hey, see what you think. And they have a little different criteria than the average school employee.
Would it be possible that some of the testing companies would have a video that could be used in training?
I'm sure there probably are some training videos that we can use. And we can create our own district protocol that we get a second opinion on a reasonable suspicion issue.
And we could do probably all that training can be done online now.
Okay, so going to take it back, present it back to OSSBA. Basically, what we're talking about is they will not be eligible to participate pending consent for a drug test and a negative result.
Okay. On that last part, if they refuse.
On that.
Yes.
Okay.
And then, Doug, I would say if you feel prepared to move forward, but if you don't, I agree with Colin, but if you feel prepared, I would trust your judgment.
And I think one of the things that'll be important is we're obviously going to have to contract with the company, and I want to get some competitive bids, and then obviously we're going to have to provide our nurses some training on that as well. So it really may realistically not happen, and if we want to do it correctly and make sure we have everything in place until the next year, but we're going to move forward on getting all the things in place.
I like the time frame if we could get it started, but to Colin's point, if it's pushing you, I think you've come a long way in a short time.
Yeah. And I'm just going to put you on the spot right now, Doug.
Okay, go for it.
Because you're the most involved in this, you know the logistics of it, you know time frames, the companies you've been speaking with. Do you think that we would be rushing into it if we did it next semester?
I think we probably would. And the thing is, I don't want to stall and not move forward. I want to go ahead and let's get some competitive bidding on the different analysis companies we can use. Let's get our nurses trained, and let's just see where we are. We're not going to stall and slow play.
We're just getting our ducks in a row.
We'll move forward, and when we get there,
and then we can decide when we want to implement.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So in preparation for next month's regular board meeting, then we'll bring this revised wording back for approval.
So there's no vote on schedule left tonight.
Let's, I would recommend that we table this until we bring back that revised language.
We don't have to move to table it, we just don't vote on it, correct?
Who made the motion? You want to withdraw?
I will withdraw my motion.
Okay. Who seconded? Who seconded that?
No, and I will withdraw my second.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
We'll bring that back in December.
Next item is the change order, item G, I believe.
This is a bit of a perfunctory change order that really will allow us to close out this contract. The work has all been done. The contractors were given verbal approval to conduct this work. So recommend approval for change order number 6, which was a total of a $19,000 increase on a $4.3 million contract.
We're going to need a definition of perfunctory first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, please.
Oh, excuse me. Making fun of my vocabulary there. Excuse me.
We got it. No, I was admiring it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
What's the school board grade going to be then?
At any rate, it falls well within the percentage, 10% increase allowed within the law. So recommend approval of this change order.
Motion?
Move we approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I don't believe there's any new business.
Nope.
Brings us to board comments. Lieutenant Colonel J.J. Lisinski.
All right, I'll be quick. This is like a crazy long meeting. First off, it's good though. Crazy long meeting. It was great. It was great to see all those folks out there. I mean, that was awesome to hear from the kids. So that being said, just some kudos. Dr. Floyd, appreciated you coming out to the base for the dedication of the Feitner Foyer. That was pretty good. Yeah, you were out of there quick. You didn't even stick around for punch, but appreciated you being there.
I had other places I needed to get to, but that was a nice honor on her behalf.
Yeah, so that was nice. We weren't sure what was going to happen. She had no idea, so it worked out well.
But for her.
Appreciate you coming out to that. Appreciate you keeping things moving tonight. Very out of character for you, but you were the one. That's right. So
thank you.
The new long-winded award though is now going to Colin, so you are off the hook in the future. So we'll put a sailboat in front of him. He can fill those sails for the next few meetings. All right. Kind of moving right along on some more serious stuff. So for those of you that haven't heard, and I know, Ernie, you've probably heard already, Vance is going to have an air show this year in July. The date probably won't be released for a few weeks. We're thinking it's probably going to be the 23rd of July, but it's contingent upon the Thunderbirds publishing their schedule.
Wow.
So that being said, this lines up with Vance 75th year anniversary of air education at Enid. So with that, this is going to be a larger than usual event. McConnell's not having an air show. Tinker isn't having an air show. We're expecting this to be a big, big deal. Wow. So I'm sure, Ernie, you'll be in a lot of discussions with some things going on. But I kind of wanted to, and I use those terms, air education in Enid, very deliberately. I want to take advantage of the fact that Vance is focused on education and sort of pair that up with what EPS does. And I don't know exactly what that means yet, so I'm kind of looking for ideas, but I want to highlight that education piece, and I think the district can have a big part in that. So
I think when we get past all of the testing in the spring, that might be a good time to do some fun things with air education in the schools and in preparation for a lot of people attending that once school is out in the summer.
Yep, yeah.
At one time, we did some aviation classes in summer school that were pretty exciting for some of our kids.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Well,
So,
you have vendor booths also where the school could literally set up a booth on
Right.
on the ramp and things like that. So
right.
I can't even begin to tell you how huge this is that Vance gets this air show, because it's been a while, and it's awesome that we're being able to host one. So
Right.
Well, just to make sure I'm deserving of the award I just received, you know, Doug and I have been talking recently about talking to kids about alternative paths, other than just, okay, you graduate, you go to college. We have a large support staff in Enid that is from Enid that supports bands on base, going to airplane mechanic schools, things like that. So when we're looking at air education, that's not just talking about the pilots. That's also talking about the education and the path to jobs out there on base, because those are very good jobs to have. And so a person that might not be 4-year degree but might be leaning towards the mechanical side of things, that's a very good opportunity to expose them to that.
Be a good opportunity for us to partner with Autry also in that joint effort.
our ROTC group could come together somehow.
Right.
Do we still have Civil Air Patrol?
Yeah, there was one here today. So, so that being said, I think I just kind of wanted to get that out there. The date hasn't officially been published. We're thinking it's going to stick, but I just want to kind of throw that out there so that we can start thinking about it, build some ideas, and then we've got plenty of time to plan and build this into what it really is, because I think it's a great opportunity to highlight that education piece. So moving on to the next thing, if y'all haven't heard, if your phones haven't been ringing off the hook and buzzing with weather alerts, we're supposed to get some really bad weather tonight. So just be aware of that, and it's like coming now. So let's wrap it up.
As soon as you get done, we will.
So,
Pa-dum-pum.
yep, kind of along those terms, I've got just 2 more points, and then I'm bailing, because I do not want the long-winded award. We had, on a different serious point, we had an exercise today on base that was focused on disease containment, and it highlighted a couple of issues as we were talking, obviously with Eisenhower being on the base. If something happens where there's pandemic influenza, something along those lines where it's a health issue, that it's not just going to affect the base, it's going to affect any mass gathering area, specifically the school district. We got into a lot of philosophical discussions about sharing of information, making sure that the district was aware of what was going on in the base, and we were aware of what was going on in the district, because at that point everybody's really busy, and those sort of relationships that we have tend to, not be strained, but it's difficult to communicate sometimes when we're really, really busy. So I just kind of wanted to highlight the fact that we're thinking about those things and want to make sure that we have a process in place so that where there's a bat phone, so to speak, so that, right. Right, but I think there's some specific information that we might be looking to exchange that might be a little more sensitive. So we can talk offline.
Yeah, the bat phone is really either Amber or me.
Right. So.
In addition to our crisis plan that the board approves, we also have a crisis communication plan, and I would love to include any components we would have prepared in advance.
Okay. That'd be awesome. So we'll kind of talk offline, but it highlighted some things, and I'm like, I'm sure we can work that out, but it'd be great to have this sort of pre-established before something bad might happen. Whether this is bad weather or some health issue, whatever. Okay, so my last point, we talked a lot about those school grades. I think a lot of great points were made, and Ernie, you kind of mentioned it. It doesn't just impact the education of the students, it impacts development in the community. It determines, folks at the base as they make decisions on where to send their kids, where to live, businesses that come into town or are thinking about it. And what you see, you know, having moved 10 times, the first thing that you do is you go and you find that publicly available information. And that information is going to be available. And Carl and I were kind of talking, it's not really good information, that's just data. And it doesn't really indicate what's going on necessarily in the district. So one of the things that we kind of talked about, and again, this is going to kind of go back to what Amber does, getting out in front on the communications piece goes a long, long way. If it's articulated, okay, got it, you know, thank you, State of Oklahoma, for this data. Here's what we're doing, and kind of spin that so that, and think about a guy like me that's just Googling whatever information they can get right after they, you know, where in the world is Enid, Oklahoma? What information is just going to pop up in that Google search? And the real valuable stuff as far as what's going on in the district, what are we doing to develop these kids so that when somebody looks at Enid High School, that doesn't match up with the preponderance of the information that's out there that talks about all of the great programs and performance of the students. So that's what I kind of wanted to leave. And you talk a lot about, you really are looking ahead, and you're looking at these things like the population growth in the ELL side of things and resourcing that. And you've got a lot of that stuff there. I would just offer, if you can get that out in front of those grades and make it brighter and louder and, you know, more important than those grades, it's going to go a long way. So
is there a website that folks like yourself who learn that they're coming to Vance, is there a military website that they look at first, that they learn about Vance, or they look at housing availability because it's offered through a military website?
For housing, yes. For the schools, no. So everything that pops up is what Google spoon feeds you. Like if you Google Enid.
But you all don't direct them to any specific sites?
We don't. For housing, we do. But again, it goes back to people make a decision. If they have kids, they make a decision on where they're going to live based on what school they want their kid to go to. And they base that on what information they get from a Google search. So, but.
Turn your mic on, please.
Our newcomer sections of our website is where we focused a lot of that, but I just want to say how much I appreciate Vance and the Airmen and Family Readiness Department, because we provide hundreds of welcome packets, and while I know they certainly make sure that it meets the needs of the family and that they're fair and equitable, I do know that they say these are the resources that are available to you in the public schools. We'd like for you to take a look.
Right.
And so I appreciate their willingness to do that when families step foot at Vance.
Right. Yeah. So.
One of the things, though, that I want us to think about when we go there, and I appreciate you bringing that up again, is, you know, obviously we're in it for the kids. I mean, that's reason number one, but there are so many other things going on. Carl mentioned our finances. You know, as we see the community sprawl because they're trying to reach out to these other school districts around us, then that affects our tax basis. And that impacts how much money we have to spend each year, which then in turn impacts how many teachers we can hire. And it's a vicious circle. So there are other significant reasons that we need to get a handle on some of this stuff. And so it's great that we're working on that. Since we're going into board comments, I'll just go ahead and say that even to the folks sitting in the back of the room, I'm so glad everybody that's here is here to go through this, because even though we're looking at nearly 10 o'clock, this is important stuff. And we can't ignore it. We can't not do it. And so I just appreciate so much the fact that the board is willing to be here late, that these folks are willing to be here late, and that we're willing to go through this and actually listen to the presentations and see the work that's taking place, because we've got to make sure that we make this a priority.
And accepting a battery of questions. Thank you for that.
May I add one thing? And this is just a suggestion. I don't know, Amber, you do so many things. Several years ago, we had realtors in town that would show a house and say, but you really don't want this because it's in the Enid School District. You know that. And so if you do write up something, as the Colonel suggested, a really good place to distribute it would be to all of our real estate agents.
And they started coming to us for welcome packets, which I really appreciate, and we're running so long. I went and spoke to the Realtors Association, and I will tell you, it is the best face-to-face meeting I've had as long as I've been employed here, because we just connected, we're very honest. They told us what they told me what they hear and wanted information, how to correct that. And it was just very open. Sometimes you feel like your toes are stepped on just a little bit when things are that open, but I think it was really open lines of communication. And they even asked, what do we tell people who go to these websites that are Rate My School and they think they know everything about your school because they look at this one color code. And I said, I've had some realtor friends kind of complain about, what's the realtor that starts with a Z, the app?
Zillow.
Yeah, I've had some realtor friends complain about that. He said, never mind, you don't have to go any further, because they know how unreliable those types of things are as a source, as opposed to the people who would be working with the children and the people who would actually be selling them a home. So I'm hoping we're making some strides in that area, because I personally was told in 2006 I didn't want to buy a house because of where it's located. I very quickly straightened her out.
Communication. Well, thank you, Amber.
It still happens. And I will tell you that I deal with a lot of realtors, and my experience is it depends on where the realtor lives. A lot of the realtors will direct them into the district they're part of, so. Any other comments from the board?
Just because I want to keep us all here forever. I do have to point out that every meeting that I've been to, the attendance has increased. So I'm sure it all has to do with me. Just want to throw that out there.
Touche.
So we're gonna need a bigger building? Well, just to keep us going, I'm gonna assume the commentary is all finished. To keep us going, our special meeting is December 7th at 5:30, right here. And then our next regular meeting is Monday, December 14th, at 6 p.m. right here. And, we do need an executive session tonight.
Yeah, we'll try to be quick. Try being the operative word.
Now, help me, we need a motion to go in, but not to come out? Excuse me, is there a motion?
I move we go to executive session. I couldn't say that. My mouth is asleep. I move that we go into executive session. Sorry.
Second. Pursuant to all that stuff. All in favor, say aye. It passed. So JJ, you gonna